This is the type my talk in general is because my foundation comes from the Draugiem group, where I was recruited early on when they decided for the first time that they wanted to experiment with developing their products for an international audience. So some of you guys might be too young to remember Draugiem LV. Everyone know what Draugiem is. Right, so Draugiem was this umbrella organization. What they did very smart early on that they reinvested their profit from the super successful social media app into developing products that would support them. At first, the first product that they developed was an SMS marketing app. So if anyone remembers, the way that you could, for example, do different things like create an album or see who has visited your profile, you had a micropayment that you sent via SMS. And when they started, then they outsourced that payment to an SMS company that existed. The first spin off startup that they created was their own SMS company so that they could keep that profit in house. So they started doing this a lot and a lot and a lot. But all of the products that they were creating were all for the Latvian audience. There was Paticum Kuopa, there was Text to Reach, which was the SMS company, et cetera. And at one point, there was the .com bubble. Then they realized they have to go for something bigger. They have to go for something international. Uh, um, but they didn't have the language. They didn't have the know-how. They didn't have the cultural understanding. It wasn't a time when Netflix would be available where you can see so much of the different culture and the zeitgeist and everything. So we were pretty remote at that time, um, as well as just to have the balls to like sell because back then a lot a lot of the Latvian mentality was, oh, why would they buy anything from little old me over here in Latvia? Because we have a fucking good product. That's why. Anyway, so this was why they brought me on, and this is how I uh, eventually became part of the founding team on Printful, because we started creating these startups. At any given time, I was involved in 12 startups in under the Draugiem umbrella. There was always a ton going on. They took the process of throwing macaroni at a wall and seeing what sticks, and they were ruthless. If there's traction, we keep going. If there isn't, we cut it and we move on to the next one. And for every startup that started, we started with a core team. There was the project manager, the designer, the developer, and me, who did all of the content, all of the website text, the copy, the support, the sales, the marketing, all of that stuff. Anyway, that's a very long-winded introduction to say, hi, I'm Julia. I'm the co-founder of True6, which is a content marketing and PR agency. We work with innovators, tech innovators that are looking to gain their visibility in international markets. I was on the founding team of Printful, which now you understand how that worked. And on top of that, I have the pleasure of being the English editor at Labs of Latvia, which is Latvia's startup news platform. I'm a contributor at TechEU, which is one of Europe's biggest startup news platforms. And I'm a Canadian living in Latvia. Essentially, what I do is I get companies noticed online. This is my lovely team at True6. We work with a lot of fun companies. This is an example of some of the content stuff that we create, which can range from magazine articles to landing pages to blog posts to award nominations. And then there's the PR side of things where we place our clients in lauded news platforms. But why are we talking about marketing in general? Well, because there's a shit ton of stuff going on at any given moment on the internet. And you are trying to get people to pay attention to your thing. But at the same time, you have to be aware that you're competing with everything else. So in this day and age, what we're competing over is attention. And attention is your key currency. If you have attention, then you can manipulate attention. That's the reason why there are so many freemium models in the early days of social media. If you can create the mass, then you can drive their attention, whether that's to ads, whether that's to products, whatever that might be. But how do we get someone's attention online? Well, there are two main approaches. And one approach is the money approach, and the other is the might approach. And the money approach is very clear. It's ads, It's push marketing. That's when we push something in front and force someone to see it. They don't have a choice. Whereas the might is that what we would call pull marketing, when you create something that is so interesting that the person comes looking for you and that they choose and elect to spend their time consuming whatever content you've put out. And that brings us to the concept of content marketing. Now, what is content marketing? A lot of people very often will think, well, it's blog posts. Well, it is blog posts, but it's also a lot of other stuff. It's also your social media presence. It can be infographics and visuals. It's your website text. The text itself is part of your content marketing strategy. It's your email, it's podcasts that you go on, it's the landing pages that you offer, it's the videos you put out, the blog posts. And I like this definition of what content marketing is, and I've bolded the most important text, which is creating and distributing relevant and valuable content. So creating and distributing is one. So of course you have to create it first. Second, you have to distribute it. And very often, people who are engaging in creating content marketing think, okay, I will take this day on this Tuesday and I will commit myself to content marketing. And then they create the content and then they publish it and they hit send or whatever and then do nothing. And then they're upset that it doesn't work. But the rule of thumb is that for as much time as you spend creating that content, that's as much time as you should be spending also working on the distribution of that content. Because if you're going to all of that effort to create something, it would be really upsetting if no one noticed it, but having people notice it is also your responsibility. And the other part of this is relevant and valuable content. So that's also a key. So it has to be something that provides value to whoever your audience is. And this is an easier said than done. Well, how do I know what's valuable? My trick sheet to figuring out what is valuable is that it's usually one of these three things. It's either funny, inspirational, or educational. Of course, you might have a specific niche where you would have something else, but if you're stuck, you can think, well, do I have anything that I can share that would be funny, something inspirational, or something educational, and then go from there. And why does it work? Well, it's because people don't want to be sold to in this day and age. People see so many ads that they are burnt out from ads. I mean, there are people who don't click on ads on principle. Um, any of you guys who don't click on ads on principle? I'm definitely one of them, unless it's a company that I don't like, and then I click on the ads and then make them spend whatever the 10 cents it was. Um, yeah, a lot of internet users find it intolerable, and the majority of us have some kind of banner blindness. And banner blindness is essentially this concept that we have learned, the human brain is adaptable, and we have come to learn where the important stuff is. And you just ignore the rest of it, and you just zero in on the important stuff. And so this is a heat graph where people's eyes go in an article, and where the most stuff, the most red is, that's where you want to be. That's if a person's going to a site and this is where they're paying attention, you don't want to be on the sides in the ads, albeit this is a super old school website, but you get the point. Another interesting thing that you can see in this visual is on the right side, there's the F principle of visibility, how people scan articles and content. So you can see how people will, very few people read word for word these days. So they will scan, and they will scan downward and across, like the main paragraphs. So if you are in a position where you're creating some kind of written form of content, then you can keep this in mind that those are the most important spots. That's one thing that I see all the time in Latvian news articles, how they don't create, they don't deliver news in a way that meets this human scanning format. What they'll do is they will bury a message at the end of a paragraph, even if it's a first paragraph. For example, there's news that um, something has happened and it's in accordance with the ministry regulation on that day and that day. In a Latvian media, it will often be switched over. On this day, in accordance with the Ministry of Economics regulation, this and this and this and this thing happened. And you know, a person's already lost. They're not reading all the way through. But that's an entirely different tangent, and I have an entirely different presentation about this. If you guys want to talk about that later, we can. But that is, yeah, go ahead. I think there are tools that measure where your eyeballs go, and I wouldn't be able to. I think that there are tools that you can upload onto your website. I think Intercom should have something like that as a tool where they see where attention goes. But um, I think so. I don't know. No, I might be mistaken, but I know that there are tools out there that do that. Maybe it happens in a focus group. Don't know. Right. A lot of people block ads. That's just another reason. But the point of this entire spiel is that attention plus trust is your gold mine. And that's where we get into the value added content. And that's where you want to be. And I love this quote. All things being equal, people will do business with a friend. All things being unequal, people will still do business with a friend. And that's essentially saying life's not fair. Even if you have a better product, it's possible that the more well-known product is going to get the clients, the buyer, because that's familiar and people like to do business with familiarity. So the question is, how do we become familiar with our clients and with our prospective clients? Well, it's the first step very often when talking about content marketing is social media marketing. It's easy, it's quick, it's free for the most part. Lately, I've been getting the question, does social even matter anymore? And we know that there are a lot of downsides. Organic reach is totally down. Whichever social platform you're talking about, if it's Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, if you have a company page, even if you've spent a lot of time building up an audience, when you post to it, your followers won't see your content unless either you boost it, you pay for it, or you share it further. But at the same time, it has other value. So if we open Google, for example, so I searched for Startup House Riga, and the first, of course, hit is the website itself. On the right-hand side, we have the Google business information, which is super important. Also a tip, if you're going to do the social stuff, then do not forget about the Google business stuff because that's the first thing that's going to pop up when you do a Google. I feel like such a boomer, do a Google. But then, yeah, but underneath that, then we have videos. Videos, all three of them are from Facebook. Okay, then after the images that they've pulled up underneath that, we have a LinkedIn post and we have a Facebook post. And then on both, we're able to see how many followers are on each account. And what I'm trying to say is that these are the hits that will be on the first page of your search results if someone searches for your company on Google. Of course, if we're talking about LLMs, then that's a different beast. And I've spoken to various marketers, and the general consensus is no one really knows how to harness ChatGPT SEO, but that the best guess is like general search engine optimization principles apply. The one thing to know, however, is that social media does not equal sales. And very often you'll see different CEOs or managers say, but we want to see the results. How many, you're spending this time doing with social media. Why aren't we getting purchases or orders or leads? Well, social media is not sales. So this is more of an e-commerce visual if we talk about where people came from in order to perform a purchase. Then for the majority, it's direct. They have typed www.yourwebsite.com or they've searched. And very, very few are social. And interestingly, also very few are paid. So what can you use social media for? Well, it's for that development of familiarity. Oh, this is the one exception to using social for sales, and that's influencer marketing, which is, if you're in the e-commerce space, I've got a feeling that there's no way around it, that you'll have to consider it sooner or later. And this is one very interesting case with Graphomap, which was a Latvian company. And I thought this was an interesting case how they automated their influencer marketing. And I'll tell you that story just so that you guys get a few ideas about how you can think about using socials and automations. Um, so what they did, so their service is that you can buy a custom map. So if there's a place in the world that's particularly meaningful to you, you can get a poster with that portion printed on the map. You can select which colors you want, and you can also add your text. It's not super expensive. They used Printful as the print-on-demand provider, so it was very hands-off for them. It was just, maintaining the website and doing the marketing. And so what they did was they created a list of micro-influencers, so influencers who have between 5 and 10,000 followers. So those who are really kind of like interested in monetizing their channel, but maybe aren't able to demand the big fees yet. And so what they did was they hired a person off of Fiverr. They said, here's this list of micro-influencers. Here's a text that we want to send you. And that text, the script was, hey, we're this brand, we can create posters. We see that you're doing like you're a home decor micro-influencer. We want to offer you this poster free of charge. Here's a code, 100% off. You can create your own. And if you like it, we would appreciate if you shared it on your account and tagged us. If not, no strings attached. They were able to do this because the overheads to print and ship a poster isn't that high. Like to print a poster on Printful is like $7. Of course, there's shipping, but that's still negligible because because these influencers, they're creating these beautiful images and sharing it to their 10,000 followers, then the return there vastly outweighs the opportunity. So they were getting like 30 influencer marketing posts from very, very little output on their side. And they weren't even paying for those posts, except with the product. So of course, the question is, are you on LinkedIn? By this time, I think we all are. But posting on LinkedIn regularly is an underrated opportunity. So there are a ton of users, but a tiny, tiny, tiny part of them are active. There are a lot of lurkers on LinkedIn, but they get billions of impressions. So what that means is that the bang for your buck is longer. The effort you put into posting a post on LinkedIn lasts longer than on any other social media platform because there isn't as much other content that's waiting to eat it up. How many of you guys have seen posts that have been published like a week ago, like at the top of your LinkedIn feed? Yeah, right? Like it happens. And that goes to show that it's not fleeting. It can be a kind of more of a long-term approach, and so worth considering, as opposed to even like TikToks and whatever that, you know, they go into the ether and they're gone. Of course, then there's also the benefit of LinkedIn's readership, And I also liked the fun fact that LinkedIn is responsible for 45% of B2B blog traffic, which also highlights for me the need to post to your LinkedIn when you've published a blog post. And a lot of people get really shy about this, and I don't understand why. Because if you keep in mind the three rules about how to create valuable content, funny, inspirational, or educational, then that's all stuff that people would want to see, and definitely your circle. So definitely share that. Another thing is that even if the article can show up or a post can show up in your feed like a week later, but even months later, if a person likes a post that you have been tagged in, you're gonna get that notification like 6 months later, which is insane. So there's a lot of benefit of creating those posts with different people tagged in them or being in an environment where you are tagged. So in a case like speaking at a meetup, going to an event, something like that. Um, yeah, and so in that way, you're reminding people of your existence. You know, hey, I've launched this product and I'm super thankful. Very eager to connect to potential clients. Sneaky, and then maybe like tag your potential clients, that your dream clients, and then every time someone likes it, they've got a notification on LinkedIn about your product and how they want to work with you. So there are options there. So there are some people who are using LinkedIn very much to their advantage. And from like an early stage startup perspective, I thought this was very smart. So Martin Schweibert, who's the co-founder of Rival Sense, was launching on Product Hunt. And Product Hunt is a platform where people can discover new software tools, but it's all crowdsourced, so you need upvotes. And like most platforms, the more upvotes you get early on, the higher you'll be shown to other people because the algorithm will think, oh, this must be interesting. So he used his LinkedIn profile to make sure that he's getting those upvotes early on. Not like, hey, I've posted to Product Hunt, but he said, if you have a Product Hunt account, please drop a comment below so I know I can reach out to you on Thursday morning. So people are already buying into the notion that they are going to perform, do something. So I was among those people who said, yeah, that's me. And then on Thursday morning, I received a link from Martin. Here's we're live on product, and you go and you upvote it, leave a comment. And the result was great. They were on the first page of Product Hunt. Another great founder approach to LinkedIn, definitely unique and definitely maybe not for everyone, but Martin Schlossmans, the co-founder of Suppleful, who posts his monthly investor reviews on LinkedIn. And some months are better, some months are worse, and he's transparent about that. And that way everyone can see his growth journey. And I think that this will only come as a benefit later on down the line, because every month he's reminding himself to his investors, to potential investors maybe that they haven't connected with yet. Yeah, and demonstrating arguably a lot of success. Um, But what's even better is that when there are bad months, then there are a whole lot more comments with other founders saying, oh yeah, I know what that's like. Keep going, you'll get there. It's just a dip, da 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 da. So it's also worth publishing not only the highlights. So one thing also to publish onto your social accounts is anything that has to do with social proof, because as human beings, it has been proven that the thing that we will trust most and base our decisions on most are other people's recommendations. Not even like scientific journals are as close as people's recommendations. The best is a personal recommendation. So someone who knows you who says, yeah, you need this. Next up is someone who you don't know who says, oh yeah, I tried this. This is a great experience. I would recommend it for others. So if you have anyone who has used your product or has collaborated with you and has something good to say about that, that should definitely be used in your content marketing strategy. Uh, Not only on your social platforms, but also on your website. It can be used on your ads. That was one thing that we did early on in Printful, was in the Shopify store, we had like a 5-star rating. Screenshot of that, 5-star rating, use our tool rather than others. Um, yeah. Yeah. So here's an example of desk time and a post where they're just sharing um, a review from one of their clients. Uh, Ideally, you would have a feedback receiving mechanism built. So, if you're enjoying using our product, consider leaving us a review, and you can direct them to whatever platform is most important for you. There are different kinds of review tools. Uh, G to G to something. There was that one that a lot of people prioritize, but then there's, Google reviews. There's even just leave a comment so that we can use it on our website or so that we can create a case study out of it. But also just manually reaching out is also totally fine. Of course, you can share the behind the scenes, first sunny day out. This is Hootsuite, who are celebrating Hanukkah with a donut day. Real life events. So this is an example with VeloSock. They had a design called the Matrix, and then on March 31st, they reminded people of their Matrix design because that was also the day the Matrix came out. Finding those creative ways to tie in your product to things that are happening now or in history is also an option. Moving on, another aspect to consider is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. 80% of your company's revenue will come from 20% of your customers. So that implies that we should really be focusing on those 20% of customers who are our diehards. And that is very conveniently done through email marketing. And email marketing is, I think, one of the most underrated tools to reach out. But there are some things that we do have to get clear before we begin, is that email marketing is not spam. This is something that we hear a lot. People are afraid of being too spammy. Well, actually, it's a permissions-based means of communication, especially in Europe. We have GDPR and everything. People have opted in. They have said that they want to receive news from your company. And at any time, they can unsubscribe. And that's also fine. You're giving agency to your people, to your followers, your subscribers. They can always subscribe later on again. And it's not the end of the world if a person unsubscribes from your email list. It just means that you are left with even more of your core buyers, your core client group, who will make up that 80% of your revenue. So you want to keep a healthy email list. Like let's get the laggers out. That's fine. Well, it's going to be an exclusive cool club. Of course, there's also huge return on investment with email marketing. When I was talking about the different startups that I was involved with at the Draugiem Group, a lot of them were e-commerce related. So the very first one was a bracelet website called Friendly Bracelets, where you could generate your colors, add your text, and a girl in Latvia would make these bracelets, and we would send them to the person who bought it. Super low profit margins didn't end up working out for that reason, but we learned a lot about e-commerce marketing and replicated it later on in everything we did. And the main lesson was, if you need to make more money, send out an email. So this came up later when we had quarterly goals and that kind of thing. Okay, we're not reaching our quarterly goals. What can we do? Mother's Day's coming up. Let's do a sale for Mother's Day. And legit, every time you would send out an email, your traffic would jump. You'd have this spike in traffic, and also purchases would spike. It's absolutely directly related. So it's not something to shy away from. Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to figure out what is okay. Eventually, what we ended up doing was like super segmenting our email list. We had opt-ins for if you want to receive blog post updates. We had opt-ins for if you want to receive just company news, if you wanted to receive our weekly newsletter or whatever. And then that way we would segment it out. But like once a week is totally fine. Like once every few days is totally fine. Um, if the people want to receive your news and if you're providing value, so like if you're not, if you're sticking to the valuable content, like, you know, we have a new product for you. You like our brand? That's great. We have a new product. You would want to know about that because you want news from my brand. Um, or you like my brand, and so I'm letting you know that we have a sale on. So you can get what you want for an even cheaper price. So if you're keeping value at the forefront, then it shouldn't be that bad in theory. Of course, there are other tools or businesses where like a daily email does make a lot of sense. Like that can be the entire premise. For example, one of the products that we were developing at Draugem after the friendship bracelets, when we realized that that wasn't working, was a platform called Be Happy, behappy.me. And it was inspirational quotes. And you could order an inspirational quote on a t-shirt or a poster or a mug. But a basic part of our marketing premise was every day we'll send you an inspirational quote to your email. So every day there is an email. And that was the biggest, our biggest email list was from Be Happy. People, I mean, of course, that was a time when everyone was sharing inspirational quotes left, right, and center. And this is a story that I was going to tell in the afternoon. But the idea is that the reason the Be Happy business was even contrived by Laurens Liberts, one of the co-founders of Draugem, is because he noticed this trend. Everyone's sharing these quotes. How can I monetize this? And how can I get a slice of this business? And so that was his response to that. And he was also seeing that because everyone is sharing these quotes, that will make our marketing a whole lot easier because it's built in, like people are already, they already have this drive, this internal need to share inspirational quotes. They might as well be our quotes with our website on it and our brand, which is connected to a poster, a t-shirt, a mug, whatever. Um, so you can already start seeing how this is evolving into the printful concept. Right. I don't know. Did I answer your question? Oh, yeah. No, actually, I don't. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know anything about like the actual mechanics of making sure that your emails go through. I feel like domain people know that more. So, um, in order for email marketing to even have any kind of impact, first you need to develop an email list. And actually, the word to be using is not first. This can be done in parallel, simultaneously. But you do need to be prioritizing building an email list. And this is something I'm telling everyone. Like any business, it's rare that I've come across a business that wouldn't benefit from an email list because these are the people who want to get information from you. These are people who very possibly are the kind of people who sit and they're bored in their office jobs. There's a ding, and your email comes to them, and they go, "Oh, thank God, there's something else for me to read," and "Oh my God, a fun sale," and "Oh my God, I want to check out these shoes," or whatever. Um, and it's useful. So I'm part of a volleyball tournaments group, and the way that the sign up happens is through Facebook, and you have to go to their Facebook page. But I don't spend time on Facebook, but what they do is they send you an email like, "Hey, registrations are up." Thank God for that email notification. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. So long story short is you should start collecting emails as soon as you can. And this is particularly important and helpful at a very early stage, even when you don't have a product yet. That's one of the things that you can already be doing to set yourself up for success if you're only launching later on. Because inevitably, you're talking to other people, you're talking to mentors, you're talking to parents, family, friends, and whoever, and they inevitably there's a conversation that goes something like, "Oh, so what are you up to these days? Oh, well, I'm part of Start School. Oh, what Start School? Oh, well, we're building these companies. Oh, what company are you building? Oh, well, I'm doing a this and this. Oh, I would love to hear more about that. How can I find them? Oh, well, we're in stealth mode." And that's where that conversation ends. Ideally, what you say, "Oh, well, actually, if you want to hear more, this is our website. Go to www.mystartup.com and leave your email, and you'll be the first to know when we launch. And you can be part of our cheerleader team initially. And then these are your people. These are your people who are going to be your biggest cheerleaders early on. You can make that first email that you send them. I mean, it doesn't even have to be the first email. You can be sending them updates about how you guys are doing. Like, oh, this week we did a fun little, or like a really big feature that's added, and we're approaching our launch, and we're looking for this. So if anyone has information on that. So there are lots of options there. And long story short is you can start building your email list now, and I highly recommend it. Yeah, this is fun. Fun statistic about how much traffic email generates. Right, so how do you grow your list? Besides what I already mentioned, which is the website, just add a sign up thing to your website. Even if there's nothing else on your website, add an email sign up thing. If you already have a website, then there are all kinds of options. For example, the lead magnet. I'm sure you guys know what a lead magnet is, where you are trying to build that email list, but to entice a person to join your email list, you offer them something in return. 10% off your first purchase, whatever. Of course, you have to have the opt-in box, and there's a portion of people who won't opt in, but there's a portion who will opt in, and that's good because the people who opt in are the ones who want to receive more information from you. And like I said before, it's better to have people who want to be on your email list rather than the other case. And of course, with this kind of, if you have a website where a conversion can already be made, like if a person can sign up or buy or add their whatever, then offering them a discount also increases their likelihood of conversion. So it's a win-win for you anyways, even if they don't subscribe to the newsletter. This I found interesting. There's this deodorant brand. They offer the discount, but they ask you to fill out like a little questionnaire first. So they get not only the newsletter subscriber, but they also get input for their R&D purposes. Yeah, I always find it weird when companies ask for a phone number. Like, you can have my email, but I don't want you calling me. And then, there's the American approach, where you offer them like a digital product. That's not the American approach. It's Noah Kagan is the American approach. Hustle, and you're gonna learn all this stuff and you'll become so rich. But the idea that you can offer someone a digital product in exchange for their email. So, in my case, that might be an ebook on startup marketing for people who don't have a budget, or so for a design person, that might be a design template. It could be anything. It could be insight. That was just a stretch, or was it? Oh.
I'm really sorry. We have a lot of people in Zoom. They asked us to use mic.
Oh.
So my question is that with these sign-up forms, there's a whole art to it, like known as conversion rate optimization, where you try different options and like see what works, what doesn't work. In your experience or industry, as an early stage startup, like is it worth playing around? Like on one side we don't have large numbers, but on the other side, like every conversion matters. So is it something essential in marketing, or it's like way for like scale up stage or as an early stage startup? That's also a consideration to have.
I think that in an early stage situation, of course, this really depends on your situation, on your niche, on the product you're selling. But the make it exist first and make it better later is like a rule of thumb to keep to. Because like you said, like you don't necessarily know, your sample size might not be big enough to make an educated decision. Though, maybe it does work on this particular group of people. I don't know, maybe I wouldn't spend too much time tinkering with it, is what I'm saying. I would probably say keep it simple, yeah, and let it exist in that sense. Um, if you're going to be working with figuring out different things, what works, what doesn't, then I would maybe prioritize tinkering around with main text, like your H1, your header one text, and seeing how that makes a difference, because I feel like at an early stage, you maybe don't know yet what message is the one that most resonates with people who land on your page. Of course, that also depends on, are these people already familiar with their product? Where are they coming to you from? Are they coming to you from an ad? Are they coming to you from search? Are they coming to you from your LinkedIn post? Then all of that also makes a difference. So all things to consider. But yeah, I would probably work with, um, if you're going to spend time optimizing stuff, then optimize like your main text, your main image. Maybe images even isn't even that important, but to make sure that the point of your product is coming across, rather than even worrying about optimizing a pop-up.
In this new Keynesian American approach, to what extent does the digital product have to be linked to what you do? Because do you have to develop it yourself, or is it fine to reuse something which is distantly linked, but then the user have to build up a connection in their brain?
That's an interesting concept. I've never thought about the idea of offering something that isn't necessarily something that you've created. Like in theory, it's done as like a carrot for I don't know, surveys. Like fill out our survey, and then win a chance for a $20 Amazon gift card. In theory, what's not to say like sign up to our newsletter and you might get a $20 Amazon gift card. I've never seen that done before, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't. That being said, I think that the concept of the lead magnet is that they are opting in to receive your content because they think that what you have to offer is of a lot of value. But if what you're offering them, if what you're bringing them in with is something that someone else has created, then maybe that might negate the reasoning for them. Is that Siri? To whom you mean? Oh. Um, so I would probably prioritize something that you've created yourself, or, it doesn't have to be fancy. I've seen things like, you can take an existing concept like uh, a cost benefit analysis template, but put your own design on it and your logo and your commentary, and there, and you can download the cost benefit analysis template that I use to grow my business. Something like that.
Yes, thank you. That looks exactly the case here, because it's not the product itself, but it seemed to be developed by the creators of the product.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Noah probably isn't creating those 11 side hustle ideas himself. He probably has a team putting these things together for him. But at this point, it's his face is the brand and his name is the brand. So people are coming for him. Shall we move on? Oh, another question? That's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very interesting case where we might find the potential reason, like the one specific niche where maybe long-term email marketing isn't the best approach. At the same time, if this was my business, then I would think, um, okay, these people are possibly going to have another child, so maybe they want to stay on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, then I might switch that approach to like if we see that this is kind of like a cycle that people go through, like a journey and whatever, maybe it's not so much the newsletter and like the ongoing information. One of the things that we did at Printful was when a person joined Printful, they were just starting out their e-commerce journey. So we knew that they want to build an e-commerce store, but they haven't done it yet. They're just starting out. So what we developed was kind of like a course that guided them through it using a drip email approach. So with most email marketing softwares, you can state that, okay, as soon as someone subscribes, then they get this email. 2 days later, they get this email. 3 days after that, they receive this email. And that kind of guides them through a journey. So, if it's, a cancer situation, then maybe it's, okay, this is like, you know, initial resources that would be helpful for you. Later on, you receive support for that. Later on, you receive information about whatever that might be. I don't know. Um, but yeah, in the case of pregnancy, it might be, okay, this is, if you're just starting out, then this is the stuff that you should know at the very beginning. Later on, you get into, okay, now we're designing our nursery. And so maybe prioritizing like a drip email sequence rather than this Friday where we've launched this new feature. Perhaps, perhaps. But hey, but maybe that's like one of those situations where you're always going to have an email marketing list that's in flux. That when a person kind of completes their journey, then you can say, hey, feel free to unsubscribe at any time, or recommend us to a friend who might be going through the same thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I have a question about collecting phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I had a conversation with a guy who built a company in US, and he said that actually you should collect phone numbers as soon as possible, and you should create a WhatsApp group for your clients, and this is the best way how you can like feel and hear your clients and immediately react on some good stuff and bad stuff as well. So what do you think about it?
I think that's an interesting approach, and for sure, definitely useful to get that initial feedback. What I really like, the underlying idea here is the concept of creating a community around your product. Um, and in this case, it sounds like this guy did it with phone numbers and through a WhatsApp group, but you could also, in theory, do it on a Slack channel, a Discord channel, a Facebook group, whatever is most appropriate for your audience. Um, And yeah, for sure. Like back in the Printful days, we also created a Printful subreddit because we saw people were talking and asking for recommendations about what should we do to improve the quality of this or that, or my client didn't get their parcel, what should we do? So instead, we created the Reddit channel, we created a Facebook group where people can share their information, and that also became a very valuable tool to let people know not only were they able to talk to each other, share their successes, ask about their problems, double-sided sword, because sometimes people get angry and they say, this is such a shitty service, I'm never using it again. And then people in the comments go, oh yeah, me too, I also had shitty service. But then there are other people who go, oh my God, I just made, minimum wage and I'm able to quit my job and that sort of thing. So, the benefit of community. Of course, if you manage the community, then you can also manage the content. So one thing that was an issue early on in the Printful community was that a lot of people were using it as um, an advertising platform, just to get people to go to their stores and see their products, buy their products. So our community manager instigated a rule that you can only share your store on Fridays, and there will be a special post where like, hey, it's Friday, share your store in the comments below, and then like, you know, you create the boundaries for the community that you create, so they were able to manage it in that way as well. But yeah, I mean, for some people, it might be phone numbers. How are the online people doing? Are you guys alive? All right. Okay, moving on. Right, so when you do have, yeah, thumbs up. When you do have your email marketing set up, or you know, when you're ready to start thinking about it, there are a few ways that you can make use of your email marketing that isn't just like sporadic updates or Mother's Day sales or like I don't know what to share. So the first one is like the welcome and onboarding email. That's one email that should always be there because people have become accustomed to having the feedback that an action has been successful. So if someone subscribes and nothing happens, then they don't know, did I successfully subscribe or what happened? So it's good case practice that when a person performs an action on your site, they receive something from you acknowledging that action so that they just feel comfortable about the fact that it has successfully gone through. So even a subscription to your email list. And that's also a great first email to think about because that will often be the email that has the highest open rate. So here you're able to think about, okay, this of all the emails I send, this is likely going to be the one that people open the most. What other information can I put in here to make it most valuable to me? Um, so in the case of, this is Graphomap again with the maps, what they did is added a coupon. They shared their entrepreneurship journey, and at the bottom there it's a coupon to buy your first product. So for them, the most important thing was to drive a person towards making a purchase. So that makes sense. You want to purchase, then give them a reason to make that purchase. It could be a coupon for free shipping. There have been some studies that say that free shipping is a bigger incentive than any discount that you could offer them. Like it works more in people's mind. People think about shipping and go, oh no, shipping, oh, shipping prices. As soon as you tell someone, oh, you get free shipping, then there's going to be a much higher conversion rate. But other things that you can add are check out my step-by-step series on how to use our products successfully, or join our WhatsApp community. Just send me your phone number. um, or this is our best-selling product, check it out. Or this is our most read blog post for a good reason. Or this is you know, the templates that I would offer for to help people most. So think about what would be most important for you, what action you would most want a person to do, and try and craft your welcome onboarding email according to that. Of course, there are like all of the events. So for example, with Startup Vitamins. So we talked about friendly bracelets, the bracelets. We talked about BeHappy.me, which was inspiring quotes on a poster and whatever. The situation with that was everyone really liked sharing the quotes, but there were few people actually buying them on the posters. So the founder, Laurens, decided, okay, there isn't product market fit here. Also, the posters, we were generating them every single day. We had a little generator where we would add the text, change the font and the background. And so, you know, are people really going to buy a poster for $20 for something that I generated in a little box? So what they did instead was they took the same concept of inspiring quotes on posters, but took inspiring business quotes and then got a designer and designed these posters that look nice, and I'm sure you've seen them, that get shit done, passion never fails, move fast and break things, all these things. And so that became Startup Vitamins, and that really took off. It did really well. People loved them. But yeah, and so at this point, we're already in, a growth situation cycle that we have quarterly results that we have to meet. And and so you use any opportunity necessary to remind people of how they have to have an opportunity to buy your stuff. And so one of the things that we did, so not only would we do like a Valentine's Day deal where, you get, 50% off on your second poster because, couples posters, it's not a thing, but it worked, any kind of marketing activity resulted in more purchases. But what we would even say is that in order to receive your posters in time for Valentine's Day, you have to order by January 27th or February the 5th if you're going to use FedEx or whatever. So even just reminding people about deadlines to order in order to receive products by a certain date was also enough to drive people into action, even when the product is not related to the celebration that we're connecting it to. This is the example of the step-by-step guide, the drip campaign email, where we would guide a person through their journey as a new e-commerce person. So we created this concept of Printful Guide, where a person signs up, and then we take them through the different stages of creating your own e-commerce platform. At first, it was, okay, step one is you have to choose which site you're going to sell on. So then there would be a list of the different common e-commerce platforms that, of course, were integrated with Printful, and the pros and cons. And then a few days later, they would receive an email about how to set up email marketing or how to create their first design. Yeah, then there was another one where we realized there were a ton of signups between Christmas and New Year's, and like incredible amounts, like far more than usual. And we came to the conclusion that these must be people who made a resolution that this year is going to be the year that I create my side hustle. And so we created a quick course just for these people who like really wanted to get their side hustle up and running. So this course was built on like how we can get you from nothing to first purchase as quickly as possible. So that was another email marketing drip campaign that we sent them. Then, of course, there's the opt-out email, where a person hasn't engaged with your emails in a while, and then you can write to them and say, like, hey, we see that you're not actively opening our emails. So, like, do you want to subscribe? Or we're going to clean you off of the email list unless you want to stay, and then you click this button if you want to stay. And what we have found is that people who click that, no, 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 I want to stay, they reawaken this nostalgia and then become like reactivated and then open your emails and that sort of thing. So that's, yeah. A great source to gain inspiration for potential emails is reallygoodemails.com. And you can sort through different kinds of verticals, through occasions. So you can say, like, I want to see welcome emails, or I want to see emails for fintech. I want to see emails for e-commerce. I want to see emails for Mother's Day, and just see what other people are doing. And those are real emails. And I've even had my emails sometimes that have been like photographed and put into really good emails. Yeah, take a look at that. Go ahead. It changes all the time. There are different tools that come up, and they have different value propositions. So it depends on what you're looking for. Well, I know like the hot one right now that like a lot of people are using for like e-commerce needs is Klaviyo, because it has a lot of analytics in it, and there's a lot of like sales-based tools that are integrated. Yeah, Klayvio. But like MailChimp is fine. I'm happy with MailChimp. Um, there are the really, really big organizations that use HubSpot that are all about like setting up their flows and everything is integrated. And so you can see all this conversion stuff. Personally, I find HubSpot limiting, but yeah, so it depends. I don't think that the tool is that important at the end of the day. And you can always merge to or migrate to a different one if you realize in time at a certain time that you have like a very specific need. Oh, okay, yeah, so this is reallygoodemails.com. Just, yeah, so you can see like there are different types. Yeah, you can see the B2B emails, etc. Okay, so we're moving on to the website portion of our content marketing and visibility. So things that everyone should be doing early on is installing tracking pixels and early sign-up boxes. We already talked about the early sign-up boxes, the email marketing boxes that we talked about. And another one is the tracking pixels. There's Meta that has its pixel. I think Google also has its pixel. And what it does is it collects information about the people who have visited your website. And as a minimum, I'm not entirely sure what the GDPR cookie laws are right now, but it saves it for a certain amount of time. And then when you are ready for it, you can set up retargeting ads or ads for people who have already visited your website. And we'll get into that later. But yeah, so there's LMT who this is maybe a case that I would say they tried hard and didn't quite hit the marker. They had launched their smoke alarm product, and we're telling them, guys, you really have to implement like a sign up box so people who can get news about when they can buy it or what countries it would be launched in. And they go, yeah, okay, sure. Instead, they created a get notified button rather than just having a straight up sign up box. And I think it wasn't even a sign up box. It was like a write to us if you want to be on the list, which is just too many steps. No, no, you should just have like type in your email and hit subscribe and then that's it. This is too many steps, yeah. Yeah, so then with the website sign-up forms, like I mentioned, if you don't really have a website yet, it could just be a coming soon, but sign up to be the first to know. But another thing that is a missed opportunity for a lot of companies is just to have the email sign-up box at the bottom, like at the footer. This is something that a lot of people have come to expect, and you might as well have it there so that those people who want to sign up are able to find it. That was one of the big issues that we had with a client that we were working with, the some kind of financial institution, something like that. But yeah, they were spending a lot of money developing a newsletter, but there was no place for anyone to subscribe to the newsletter. So it was just their own contacts, and there's no opportunity for that email list to grow because there's no option for anyone to sign up to it. So if you're spending a lot of resources in creating this newsletter, it would be really nice if other people would be able to join it. Right, so that was the very basic about the website. We'll get into that also later in the afternoon. But now we're moving into blog posts, which is kind of like the bread and butter of content. And there are a lot of opportunities here. So we're dividing this into different categories, blogging for yourself and then blogging for others later. So blogging for yourself, and one thing is a great content format to add to your website is case studies. I'm not sure if that's a case study, but or are these? Okay, don't know what I was thinking in this case, but let me tell you about this one case. So, of course, while I was working with Printful, I had to create my own website, my own e-commerce store to test these methods that I'm teaching other people. So I created an online store where I had one design, and that was it. And it was this crown from Latvian folk costumes. Very niche audience. This is not a global audience, and there was really nothing else in the store. It was just this crown. But obviously, the audience is Latvian, so my communication was in Latvian. And then I was thinking, okay, well, how can I market this using some content marketing and using my blog? And of course, for summer solstice, a lot of people want to dress up in a folk-ish way and feel more connected to their roots and their heritage. And so I put together a blog post about 8 ideas of what's to wear during summer solstice, where of course, one of those ideas was my t-shirt, and 7 others where I found other related products that weren't t-shirts, but were also folk-ish. So one of them were like colorful pastelas. Another one was something interesting that you could put on your head or whatever. Um, and so I wrote the article, and then what I also did is I published it to my Facebook account, added a code to it, and it did very well. It got 16, the blog post itself got 16 shares, which is a lot of shares for like a stupid little e-commerce store. And then, of course, together with that code, it made it the most selling spike of my online store in its history. And I have to be honest, I wasn't very actively developing it, and you'll see now, this was my traffic for that store. But that's just to illustrate how powerful the concept of a well-timed blog post might be. Now, I imagine if I blogged regularly, then I would have a lot of these spikes, as well as corresponding orders. And even for something super niche, for something super local, something as simple as a t-shirt, it's possible. Here's a different kind of blog post. This is the informative type, where this is back in the Printful days, where every social media platform was launching stories, these disappearing stories. And people were confused. Which one should we use? Should we use the Snapchat one, which was the original, or do we use the Facebook or the Instagram ones, which are the copycats? That was like, there wasn't like a term yet for short form content that like would disappear. So for example, I don't know if you remember Snapchat, you send like a visual to someone and it disappears afterwards and you can't see it. Or like with Instagram stories, you can put something in and it's there for 24 hours and then it's gone. So like that's like a disappearing story. And yeah, and it was unrelated to the product, but it was related to sales and marketing, which was important to our users. So we just did like a breakdown of what the different ones do, what are the benefits and obstacles of different one of those platforms. And this one blog post got like 74 shares. There are lots of blog posts like this, but the idea here is that if you go from a position of trying to be helpful and trying to help people solve problems that they're experiencing at that moment, then it's much more likely to do well. So with the Printful blog, this is a screenshot from Google Analytics where we had, I couldn't add the numbers because I wasn't allowed to, the top 3 referring sources by like purchase rate, like by how much people spend. And this was like quite the accomplishment for us because the blog was the 3rd highest referrer for Printful. So after direct search and direct www.printful.com, the next most beneficial source for purchases and signups and conversions was the blog. So the blog can be a sales tool. which is the main takeaway here. Ooh, yeah. So then another opportunity for blog posts and things to think about are the listicle approaches. So everyone likes a good list of ideas because it feels like it's a resource, and Google likes it as well. And so if you want to rank for a specific topic, then you can think about how I can create a listicle around it. And we used the same approach here, both for Selfie and for Printful. Selfie is also an e-commerce, a Latvian e-commerce platform, but they only sell on like digital products. You can only sell digital products through it. Whereas Printful sells t-shirts for whatever. People have to create their own stores. So the success of the platform depends on the success of the sellers. So in both cases, you want the sellers to do as well as possible, and so that was the marketing strategy for both. And the first step is figuring out what to sell. So in the Sellfy case, we created a list of 101 digital products you can sell online. In the case of Printful, it was 115 niche market ideas for your online store. And how did we come up with these numbers? We searched, 50 or however many digital products you can sell online in Google, and saw what other listicles were already existing and how many items they had in their list. So there were other lists with like 10 digital products, 50 digital products, 100 digital products, but Google rewards the biggest list. So, so the rule is then you make an even bigger. So if there's already 100 ideas list, you create a 101 ideas list. If there's, with Printful, if there's 110 ideas, then you create 115 ideas. That's the idea. And like I mentioned, it does really well. You can see in the Printful screenshot, 154 shares. It's pretty good. And in the Selfie's case, just like a few weeks later, they were already ranking on the first page of Google for digital product ideas to sell. So you can see that the competitors were 5, 11. So yeah, 101 was a big step up. The other approach is to improve what's working. So this is Printful's blog traffic. And it was growing, but at a very steady pace. And then we changed our approach. You can see around the middle where it starts growing exponentially. No, not exponentially, but faster. And the one thing that changed was we added a carrot. So you can see, yeah. So you can see this big jump here right after September 2015. Those were the light blue was the existing subscribers, and the darker blue were new ones that came. I thought, oh my God, why did we get all of a sudden all these new subscribers? Well, it's because we launched this article, which was just a blog post that had a digital product download attached. So of course, we're going by how can we best support our users and make them as successful as possible. And we thought, okay, they need to be prepared for the holiday season. It's the biggest sales event of the year. They have to be thinking about deals for Canadian Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Boxing Day, all these things. And rather than having to keep that all in their own minds, we offered them to download a calendar where we've listed all these dates for them, as well as order by dates, like when their clients have to order by in order to receive what they've ordered for Christmas or whatever. So yeah, and so that generated our highest subscriber amount because we had this button at the bottom, download free holiday templates, in exchange for an email. Of course, now we would have to have a GDPR checkbox. And then people were taken directly just to a Google folder, like a Google Drive folder. And this is something that we were able to create on our own just by creating a visual. The designer just put together quickly a digital file. I put it on a Google Drive, and then people press this button and they're taken to the Google Drive and they can download it there. And this was done with this free tool, which still exists, so you can also use it. Also developed by Noah Kagan, the American that we saw earlier on. Right, so case studies are also a like super underrated approach, form of content to add to your site. Localized does this very well. So also a Latvian startup, Scale Up, and they have an entire section dedicated to other companies and how they have grown by using Localize. So the reason this works is because through case studies, prospective clients are able to see themselves in the other person's shoes. So in this case, it's doxy.me, how they went from 1 to 100 languages in a few months. And then so someone who's reading that could say, oh, I too would like to go from 1 to 100 languages in a few months. And also we talked about how a recommendation is the thing that people will most trust. So it works twofold. The person can kind of like try on that success on themselves, but also they can see that there are other companies successfully doing that, and that serves as a recommendation. Yeah, and they have a ton of them. Yeah, highly recommend taking a look at that. But you don't have to have, if you don't have a ton of case studies, if you don't have enough to feel comfortable with creating a separate landing page for it, it doesn't have to be a separate landing page. It can also be a blog post. So this is Atom Mobility, a Latvian scooter platform. And yeah, and this was a case study that they shared on their own blog, how to find profitability in the e-scooter sharing industry, conversation with Bull Ride. So this is another case where they've sat down with a happy customer and asked them what worked, what didn't, why they chose their product rather than a different product. And then it's just an opportunity to have another piece of content that you can use then to send to other prospects and explain to them why their product is a good one. Okay, then we move into pitching media. And I think that this is the last section of this presentation, and we have about half an hour left, so we're making perfect time. But any questions so far? Okay. Oh, can you? I mean, I would have to leave the presentation, I think. Yeah, so not only that, so a lot of people still use Google, but also I find that a blog post is the easiest way to make updates to your website. Personally, as a non-technical person, as a non-technical founder, if I want to add something and share it with the world, then under my domain, then I'll do it on a blog post. And we do that within our own company, and we share our own experience. We share case studies, award-winning campaigns, whatever that might be, and then we share them to LinkedIn, because that's the most important case for us, is for our community and our network to see it. And I'm the world's biggest hypocrite in this case because I don't have an email list. But yeah, ideally they would also be sent to an email list as well. Sorry. Oh, hold on. Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, I totally think that they're relevant. Oh, okay. Around the post. Yeah, yeah. The
Good
catch box.
morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I arrived late, but I have a question. Um, I think those use case studies is really amazing, and I'm blog posts too. But the thing is that they are like I don't know why they are written in so long form. Okay, it looks nice from the marketer point of view,
Mm-hmm.
but from my point of view, as a user, it's not usable. Then there is the question, how to make it like not concise, but appealing to the user, not to for a marketer.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's a fight that I constantly have with SEO people because for my entire career, I have always been driven by a reader centric approach to creating written content and blog content and long form content. So I will write a post until I feel like all of the information has been delivered. Like all the stuff that has to be told is told. Um, and that sometimes that's a lot shorter. Sometimes you can say that quickly and concisely. Sometimes if you're saying like, oh, and then you write a blog post and then don't say anything, but you feel like, okay, well, but my readers don't really know how to do that. It's like easier said than done. Okay, well, how do I help them do that? So then I'll keep writing until that is clear. And so just going from the perspective that adding value to the reader, first and foremost, would be the most important. If it's super long, I agree. Then like make it a book. You know, add links to whatever. Sometimes, but like the super long posts, that's like growth marketing people. It's people who create these massive pieces that do well on Google, and people open the article and then they scroll a bit and then they think, oh my God, there's a lot of value here. I'm just going to send it to some people in my marketing team because it looks like there's a lot of value in there and it's possible that there is a lot of value in there. But you know, you're going to spend 3 hours reading it, and is that the most effective use of your time? But usually in all of like the analytics and whatnot, those tends to do very well, which is why a lot of companies prioritize them. Um, if you go to the same like Noah Kagan stuff or Piplaya, who's an Estonian who also does a lot of conversion, he has a blog called Conversion Excel, which is like pretty old school, but it was like he was the person who knew about conversions and conversion rates. And so he also had a lot of blog posts like that. And then he would also share about how well they did. And, you know, it would be just astronomical. But I agree that the best posts are the ones that help the person. And I feel like I'm seeing a trend now when people are talking about what is human centric content? I'm going, oh my God, that's like what we've always been doing. But yeah, and then there was a time in the middle when it was the search engine optimization specialists who were like the king of the castle. And then it was just like keywords, just like get all the keywords in as much as possible, even if it doesn't make any sense. As long as the keywords are there, you know, we're golden. And then this would be like, you know, a fight. Like, guys, this long tail keyword doesn't make grammatical sense. It doesn't matter. It has to be a headline. I'm not going to put it in a headline because it doesn't mean anything. Well, if you want to do it, if you want it to do well in search engines, you got to do it. We're not going to do it because we're writing for humans, not for search engines. Anyway, so there's always this constant give and take. Um, but throughout, I don't know, the past 15 years or whatever, like all these trends have come and gone, but the one thing that has always stayed the same is that if you write for a human as a human and go from a perspective of trying to add value, then you're gonna do fine. So the question was, would I suggest a particular length of the blog? Search engine optimization people would say yes. That there would be, you know, they would do a competitor analysis, and then like the listicles, they would say, oh, well, currently the leading topic on this is 800 words, so you should be writing 1,200 words. But like I said, I would just figure out what has to be said and write until all the important stuff has to be said. Of course, in this day and age with generative AI and whatnot, that's an entirely different question. Um, I myself find it difficult to make an AI right to my standard. And I know that there's a lot of AI enthusiasts who are like, oh, well, then you're just doing it wrong. You're not training it right and whatever. Okay. Um, but yeah, personally, if I also stick to the whole human centric, I'm writing for a person, then I feel like that is easiest done for me to write from the heart, I guess. Okay, so why do we want to pitch to the media? So this is writing for others. Oh, sorry, did you have a question?
Experience.
What about bots on a website? As in like a chat bot or what kind of bot? You know, like if done right, it can be helpful for support teams. First line of filtering. Did you have impact feedback? Oh, another question. Oh, yeah, okay. I don't have a ton of opinions on chatbots. It would be the short answer. Mhm. Totally. That's content repurposing, and that's probably the best use of your time. Because if you've already developed this piece of content that's doing well and you've put a lot of heart into it, and this was what I was talking about distribution, that the amount of time that you spend creating it is how much time you should spend distributing it. So not only are you putting it into your newsletter and sending it out to people, not only are you taking out quotes and putting the quotes on a visual to add it to social. You're also maybe taking a fragment, or maybe you're taking that and creating a podcast about it, whatever that might be, and whatever works best. Or like every once in a while, taking out like a fragment and creating Twitter threads. You know, whatever is the social media platform du jour. For sure, for sure. And here I actually have a story. So, one of my clients, the one that I started working with back in the Draugimalve days, Draugiam Group days, and they're still my client now, now that I have my own agency, is Desk Time, the productivity software, time tracking productivity. And like like all of us who were aiming for the biggest US English speaking market, they launched their time tracking productivity app. And you know, it did well, it did decently well. And but the problem is the Americans don't want to say that they're spying on their employees because that's like not cool. That's not the thing to be done in HR. It's all about mutual trust and empowerment and whatever. But at the same time, like they are buying the tool and they are asking for like super sneaky features. So like, you know, they want to, but they're not willing to say that they want it. And so that makes it a really difficult sell. So what Desktime started to do was they also realized that in addition to their American users, they had like a really high influx of paid users from India, from Brazil, from other countries. And they realized that in these markets, they are just very transparent about, yeah, we want to track the time that our employees are spending at their computers. Yeah, that's what we want to do. And you do that. And like that that's product market fit for you. And so now they are in the process of opening a office in India. And it took them a really long time to eventually embrace this, because there was a lot of like, no, we're not a spyware, we're not spying on employees, we're not that. But we have a lot of users in India who say that that's what they're doing with our tool and whatever. And so now the product is probably like 15 years old, and they're finally embracing the fact like, okay, yeah, we need an office in India. um, and I think it's going to do their business well. Another, yeah, Ministry of Economics, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And what everyone else has forgotten is that this is not the first time. Yeah, back in the day when I was still working there was also an agreement with the cabinet ministry to implement it. It peters out, and from what I've heard that like there's the agreement with the Ministry of Economics, but like not a ton of them are like actively using the software. I don't think so. I don't think so. But we are currently, I think they've completed like their first quarter using it. And so we're going to do a data campaign later on. I'll talk about data campaigns in this next section, but pulling out data from, this is one thing that we considered. I'm not sure if we're going to implement it or not, but pulling out data from the Ministry of Economics employees to see if their productivity has grown over time. Yeah, I think one of the problems with the previous time from like, I don't know, 10 years ago when one of the ministries was using it was that like there are ways around it. Like the way Desktime tracks activity is through mouse movement, through keyboard movement, and there are tools like mouse jigglers or like, whatever, like it tracks your active window. So you can have like an Excel spreadsheet open, but like minimized, and have like a YouTube video playing in the background, and just like move your mouse every once in a while, but like just keep watching your YouTube video. You're gonna have perfect productivity. So like it's not, it's not a true representation. It kind of gives you an indication. And if you want to get around it, you can get around it. Oh, there's a hand raised. Arina, yeah.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. So, yeah, you already partially answered this question, but yeah, I was wondering kind of what would your recommendation be when it comes to blogs for projects that are only starting out, because for Printful, for example, or like any other product in the Draugiem group, you already have like some audience, you already have a service and someone is using that service, so you have some amount of natural traffic that's coming to that blog anyway, so then you don't have to care this much about SEO. But I think for many of our projects, we're only starting out with our service and with trying to market it through blogs. And yeah, as a person who's responsible for blogs in my project, I'm now facing this internal conflict where I really hate blogs that start with, oh, what is legal, when you ask what you should wear. But at the same time, I understand that there is no other way to even land anywhere close to the first pages of search results, and having this blog as this marketing tool. So yeah, do you have any recommendations for us, the people who are only starting out?
Yeah, so if you remember the blog post that I shared from my e-commerce store with the t-shirts, that was my first blog post. So even one blog post can do very well in isolation. So I think that my recommendation would be to think, how can I provide maximum value? So without knowing much more about your product, it's difficult to say, but then I would think, how can I create something that's super, super valuable for my intended customers right now? Either that, or how can I don't know if like a listicle situation is what you need right now, because like you're right, you're still building up your domain authority and everything. So the best thing that you can do is serve your current or like your very near customers. So think, what do they need right now? What do they need to hear from me? How can I support them? How can I alleviate what their problems are and then develop that content around for them? Does that help?
Yeah, in a way. And I think, yeah, there's still that challenge of how do you make people see that? But I think that we will just use the kind of manual approach of sharing that on forums and so on and so forth to just get the first people in.
Yeah, the how do you make people see it is the distribution aspect of it. And so you're really using all of the possible approaches that you have at your availability. So you're sending it out to your newsletter that has 4 subscribers. That's at least 4 people that are going to see it. You're going to share it on your personal LinkedIn account. You're going to maybe post it to a forum that's discussing that same problem. Like, hey, we like wrote up our suggestions on this article if you want to check them out. So figuring out how to get people to see it, that is your biggest challenge, and that's also definitely also your biggest opportunity. So hopefully that helps, and um, if you want, we can chat later about specifics. But moving on to the pitching media aspect. So why do you want to be found on external media outlets? Well, it's because you want this kind of line on your website. You also want to see the as seen on Business Insider, Forbes, whatever, because this is, again, that's the social proof. That is the same thing as social proof when people see, oh, that person is recommending it. But in this case, it's a media outlet that's recommending it. And in people's minds, that means that, oh, okay, if this has been on this media outlet, then it's interesting enough to be featured by this cool, of all the competitors, it was this company that was featured. The journalist has vetted it, so it must be legit. It's not a scam. That's something that scammers take advantage of for sure. And yeah, and so it makes people trust them, and it also is also a signal to investors, for example, like, oh, if this media outlet has been, their interest has been piqued, then there must be something there. So it's an indication that there's something cool about this. Of course, it doesn't just happen naturally. This is the result of hard work. And sure, it can accidentally happen, but there will be much fewer instances. So here are just a few articles that my company has set up in the past little while. But the question is, yeah, but how do you do that? Well, that's my favorite topic. And in this next part of this presentation, we're going to be going through replicable tactics that you guys can learn and implement for yourselves. So these are approaches that we've used and honed for several years and continue to use to drive visibility for our clients. So everything starts with having to find your story. And how do you find your story? Well, there are different approaches, particularly for an early stage startup. So one very easy, low-hanging fruit story is major news. For a startup, that could be a launch, it could be a fundraising round, it could be an acquisition, a first-time achievement. So for example, we've got Merch One entering the US market. So like this was an interesting case where this company had existed for a long time and they needed some buzz. But they're a German company and they were present in the European market. But they were looking to develop their visibility in the States. And so our question to them was, well, have you like created a campaign announcing that you're entering the States? No, we haven't. Okay, well, let's start with that. And that way you're telling people that, hello, we are here, rather than just kind of like quietly going in and going, oh, why isn't everyone my friend? So it's like announcing your presence. So this was an interesting solution. A first-time achievement. So Esketit, Latvian fintech company, figuring out like first-time things. So their thing was, for the first time, they're letting people to invest using stable coins. For crypto websites, that was interesting. A funding round. A funding round is always newsworthy, and this is probably, publicity is guaranteed. Of course, funding rounds come later in a startup's life cycle, and the demands are growing. So if previously we would be able to secure publicity for a startup that raised 150,000 in Tech EU, now they're looking for much more because there are a lot of other startups in Europe that are also fundraising, and the fundraising tickets are becoming increasingly large. So a media platform has to choose. They can't cover everything. They don't have unlimited resources to write these stories up. So logically, they're going to cover the biggest ones. And if the biggest ones are, you know, we're already seeing like hundreds of millions of investment rounds. And then if we approach them on a day where there's been like a huge investment round with like our little like, oh yeah, we have 200,000, you know, you can't really compete with that. Of course, this depends on the news cycle of the day. But yeah, so funding rounds are always an easy one. This should be in a different category, but this is an interesting case where there is an event, a reaction to an event. This will be in a later category, but I'll tell you about it now anyways. So one of the different ways you can think about your publicity is jumping on a world event. And currently, that's like Trump and tariffs. And often, like, you can't really compete with that. Like, you know, what are you really going to say about Trump and tariffs? But in this case, we have a client that can say something about that. And that client is Supplyful, who had relocated a portion of their fulfillment to the States using a lot of US created products like, you know, their protein powders or gummies or whatever supplements that they're selling on demand and fulfilling it from the States. And now that there are these tariffs and that it's more expensive to import stuff from outside countries, then they're saying, great, we're already in the States. You can buy from us and there won't be additional tariffs. So in a news cycle where everyone is saying, oh my God, these tariffs are going to be so bad, there was one company that was able to say, well, actually, we're going to benefit from this. And that was an interesting angle to offer this journalist, which we did, and also resulted in a post. Here's another like first time situation. So LMT was, they set up their red light enforcement tool at an intersection in Vilnius. And this is maybe not news for international Forbes, but it is interesting news for city mobility niche media outlets. So whenever you're thinking about publicity, you can always be thinking not only general media, but also is there, in my niche, is this news? Because niche media is much more likely to cover interesting things that are happening that might not be interesting to the wider public. Which is very helpful to harness because all of these backlinks, they will help your domain authority. They will also drive traffic. They will drive reputability. You'll be able to use that as seen on. It'll become social media content. You will become more well known in your industry. So definitely niche media is something to take advantage of. And then there's like just regular product launches. So I used our example from Printful. And in Printful's case, okay, this is a longer story. So back in the day when we were launching Printful, TechCrunch was the media, the startup media. If TechCrunch wrote about your company, you were set for life. You would have investors knocking at your door. Everything would be fantastic. And at that point, TechCrunch had never written about a Latvian company. And I had just been starting to learn how to offer articles to other media outlets and to get us into other platforms. And it was really exciting. And then, you know, Lauris Liberts is in the office and we're all chatting about the publicity. And he goes, oh, well, the next step is going to be to get in TechCrunch. And everyone kind of had a laugh because TechCrunch will never write about a Latvian company. And for me, I was like, all right, challenge accepted. So eventually we did, but the road to get here was very planned out. And I think I've got that story a little bit later. But that's all to say that even a product launch is interesting information when it's packaged in the right way. So another category could be industry insight. So no one else knows as much about your industry as you do. In theory, you have unique knowledge, and that is interesting. So you can shed light on something that other people find difficult or confusing or unclear. You can be the expert that explains an event or something that's going on. And you can also kind of show the behind the scenes of what it's like actually in this niche. That, you know, people might have assumptions and you can show them what it's really like. So here are some cases where we were able to use this kind of surprise factor and unique experience. So this is a co-founder of Localize. We wrote this piece for him. And like for startups, like the holy grail is the enterprise customer, right? You have like the funding little the different categories, and you know you've got your basic and you've got your pro, and then you've got enterprise, and you don't even have a price there because oh my god, that's just gonna be so much money. And wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a ton of these enterprise customers? And Localize was saying that they've actually been saying no to a lot of those enterprise customers. And so we thought, okay, well, let's write an article about this, explaining why they, as a startup, are saying no to the biggest paying potential customers. I mean, the long story short was the big customers were asking for too many modifications. And as soon as you start doing all these individual modifications just for that one client, then you're making the tool like too cluttered and it's not filling its original purpose. So that was a direction that they went in, and then we wrote this article, and it was interesting because it exposed like an opposite to what the assumption would be. Here's an opinion from Testive Lab. So this was a commentary, an expert commentary on this regulation that's about to come in Europe. It's the European Accessibility Act, where all internet experiences will have to be accessible to people with different disabilities. And this was her explanation about what the risks are there and how companies can prepare themselves against it. Another thing you can do, if there's a conversation that's already going on in the media, then you can jump on it. So a media outlet is a business. They are serving their readers. They need clicks. So if there's a hot conversation, they want to create articles. They want to create stories that people can read about that because that's what people are hungry for at that moment. So if you can offer them something that they can feed their hungry readers, then you're helping the media outlet, and the media outlet is happy about that, and they're helping you. So that's the best possible situation. So commentary on a trending topic, providing original fresh data, or unseen analysis. So this was a case on, back in the day, SoundCloud was about to go bankrupt. This was in the news, all of the tech media was publishing it, was writing about it. Oh my God, what a travesty. All this indie music is going to disappear. It'll be a loss to culture globally. And everyone's like every day on the seat of their chairs thinking, oh my God, what's gonna happen today? Is SoundCloud gonna go bankrupt or not? And at that time we were working with Sellfy, the digital sales tool. And their added value is that you can turn any platform into a sales channel. They can add their sell button into anywhere. And some just like fun fact that they had mentioned in one of our meetings was that they get the most conversions from SoundCloud, which showed to us that people on SoundCloud want to buy stuff. Like these SoundCloud artists, they were selling MP3s, they were selling their music or like album art or whatever. So like clearly there is purchase intent on SoundCloud, but SoundCloud wasn't providing the infrastructure for that to happen. So we were able to jump on that, create an opinion piece about how SoundCloud should have monetized, and we have the data to back it up. So that was that, and they were very happy about it. And they even featured this article in their How to Pitch a Story is a good examples article later on. Here's another example of COVID times when everyone was talking about the restrictions. Latvia was the one country that was still open to tourists and travel. And the government decided we want to take advantage of this and market Latvia as a destination where you can come and not have all the same restrictions as the rest of the world. So we were able to pitch this to travel media. Then there's this ongoing discussion about the 4-day work week, and there are different countries that are testing out the 4-day work week. And so we were able to create an opinion piece on why UK employees need a 4-day work week for this UK media outlet using data that we had from desk time. Okay, and this is a case where we had a really difficult client in terms of like, they're not doing anything interesting. And the client is like banking software, but like not what people would use, like the insides of a bank. So like the buyers are bank uppers up. It doesn't really change how we interface with the bank. Yeah, so like really boring. They also can't talk about anything. They can't really talk about politics. They can't talk about this. They're not creating any innovations because the banking industry is super conservative. But they needed PR. So this is what we came up with. Bulgaria was one of their target countries. And at the time, this is just a few months ago, yeah, January, there's an ongoing discussion in Bulgaria how they really want to join the Eurozone. And in order to join the Eurozone faster, then there are some requirements that have to be met. And this client was saying that, okay, this is what we think from a banking perspective, how you can join the Eurozone faster if you use these or like make the most out of it for your financial independence and everything. So they were able to jump on the Eurozone topic with their like super boring product, but with their expert opinion about how these banking systems contribute to democratic processes and whatnot. Okay, and then of course, one of the current ongoing hot topics is how everyone is using ChatGPT and AI on at work, and we're able to test that using desk time very easily. We see who is using which apps at any given moment, and so we were able to track the rise of it. And so we did that, and we could then see which countries were using AI tools the most, where it was being onboarded the most. Interestingly, the most was India. But another close second was Mexico. And what we've started to do is develop specific press releases targeting specific different countries based on those different locations where they're based. So if you have data that can relate to different countries, then definitely package that separately and give it to that country, because countries also have their own national media and they are interested in talking about themselves. There's no topic as interesting as yourself to oneself. So that went well, very well. Then the next is the human interest story. And lately there's been a trend that, journalists don't want to write about software. They don't want to write about your product, but they do want to write about the person behind it. They want to write about the people who are going to be impacted. So that's the direction to always think about. And so you can look at your own team and see, like, what's your unique founder experience? Do you have an uncommon team member experience? Do you have unexpected lessons learned? So for example, this is Martins from Supplyful, the co-founder. And he's like a total workaholic, and he's not afraid to talk about it. And then he agreed to this article for Business Insider titled, "I'm a father of three working up to 16 hours a day. The guilt of missing my kids grow up is torturous." I mean, that's a very unique founder experience, talking about how you're building a startup at the same time you have children, and then how do you balance um, those two needs. And like, very human as it is, it's very difficult to balance. And he's not doing a good job of it. The other co-founder of Suppleful, how I turned the mistakes of my first startup into wins for my second one. So that was just looking at your own experience, what lessons you can learn, and sharing them with others, because your experience is unique and it can be applied to others. And I promise that there's something interesting for other people to learn from. Here's another one for Business Insider on Agris Tamans, who's also the co-founder of the Draugiem Group. And his interesting angle is that, so he was the co-founder of Draugiem, became a billionaire, no, billion-dollar company, but now he is finding his most fulfillment by teaching programming in the CS high school. And that's like a very unique career shift. So Business Insider was interested in covering that. Of course, then there are also data-driven stories. Now, this is my favorite. Any company who has a digital product has a database. And in that database, you have data that's being stored. And based on that data, you're able to extrapolate tendencies, trends, directions, whatever that might be. So there's that, but also you have skills. So this is a recent campaign for Testive Lab, who are launching a new service, which is accessibility testing. And what they did is they took a list of 100 of Europe's biggest fintech platforms and then analyzed how many of them meet basic accessibility requirements and found that only 31% do. So we were able to create a press release around this. There's the timeliness because there's the European Accessibility Act that's coming up. And also we were able to reach out to the companies that didn't meet those accessibility requirements and say, hey, we've got a perfect service for you guys. So this wouldn't be interesting unless we had the data to provide. So this one's not only to fintech outlets, but also general outlets, as well as platforms that are specifically interested in accessibility. Yeah, another one of the AI topics, using desk time data to track how many hours are used using AI, this in 2023. So like easy, low-hanging fruit just by using the data that's available. New data proves staying late in the office is pointless. That's another desk time data one. And this is probably my most famous case. It went viral. It's more than 10 years old, but it still gets publicity. And it's this concept. We took a look at all of the 10% most productive people and found what they had in common. I had a few hypotheses that maybe they're all morning people and they come to the office really early, or maybe they're night owls and they listen to their internal rhythm to when to work. But no, what turned out to be the case was that they worked in sprints with lots of breaks in between. And on average, it was a sprint of 52 minutes, then on average, a break of about 17 minutes. And they would work in this rhythm throughout the day: big sprint, big rest, big sprint, big rest. And those were the most productive people. So we wrote an article, and it went absolutely viral. And it was on every news platform you could possibly find. And it still is, and it's still getting like hundreds of references like per month. And like people have created apps based on it. Here's another one. People have written books, academic studies, where I'm cited as a social scientist. Yeah, so, oh gosh. I think there's still a lot more in this presentation, guys. I think maybe we take a break. Let's see how much we still have. We still have about 50 slides. So yeah.
We had a shift in the agenda of the day, so it's my fault. Sorry about that. But right now we have that long break, as I understand, right? The 1 hour break.
Well, what time are we coming back for part two? Is this a situation where we take 15 minutes and we come back and finish these 50 slides? Or is this a case where we take the 2 hour break or whatever, or 1 hour break until we come back for part two and finish this? Because we still have content on part two.
Okay, maybe short break and then let's continue until 12. Then let's have
Okay.
a 1 hour
Okay.
lunch break and then continue at
All
1.
right, so we'll be back at what, 20 past?
Yeah,
20 past
that's
11?
best.
All right.
Great.
See you guys.
Just in case, we'll start a few minutes later, so in 3 minutes approximately.
Hello, hello, hello. My apologies for taking longer than our allotted break time, but it was very necessary, I think. Okay, are we all back? Everyone happy? Everyone hydrated? Okay, so we're going to resume the presentation. Okay, so where we left off. In short, we left off realizing that, yeah, we do want media visibility, but how do we actually practically make that happen? And now we're getting into the very nitty-gritty practicalities of approaching a journalist and getting them, or an editor, and getting your content into the media outlets. Now, this is one thing I didn't know when I was just starting out, is that there's a very big difference between pitching a journalist and an editor, because a journalist is the person who finds stories and writes them themselves. They get paid based on the articles that they have written. Whereas the editor doesn't write stories. Sometimes they might, but that's not their job. Their job is to make sure that everyone is writing interesting things and going in their editorial direction. So that has implications. So when you're writing to a journalist, you have to realize that they are being bombarded with story ideas. Write about me. I'm an interesting company, and we're doing this. Write about da 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 da. So this is to illustrate. There was a Forbes journalist who, on his last day of working at Forbes, wrote an article about how much emails he got as a Forbes journalist and how many stories he covered, just to give you an idea. So this is one day, and he said that in one day he received 92 total emails. A third of them were just internal Forbes stuff. They were preparing for a conference that they were organizing. A portion, 11%, South by Southwest, that was an event that they were planning on going. 37%, so again, roughly a third, were just pitches. So in total, 34 pitches in that one day. So those are, in one day, he's got more than 30 companies saying, write about me, we're interesting. So how many of those pitches received a response? So 82% of those pitches did not receive a response. 18% did, so that's 6 in total. And so he, even getting a response from that journalist saying, it could be either like a, oh, could you tell me more? Or this might be interesting if it had this element. Or, oh, I just wrote about this, so we won't be writing about that very soon. But so already receiving an answer is already a huge outlier. And of those 6 responses he shared, none of them resulted in an article. So you can see that journalists have a lot of opportunities to write, and they're not able to write about all of them. And it is unlikely and an uphill battle, and it's really, really hard. So most likely they won't answer you, but that's okay. This was one of the takeaways from that article. I won't read all of it out, but essentially that last section is, if you write a personalized human-sounding email that directly relates to a reporter's beat, a beat is how journalists describe like the topics they write about, you're probably doing better than 75% of PR professionals. So that is hopeful. The best way to get a response is to make sure that you know who you're writing to, and to double check that they do write about the things that you're telling them about. Because just because you're pitching a TechCrunch journalist doesn't mean that they write about your niche. It might be a person who only writes about mobility, or it might be a person who only writes about African tech. So make sure that you take a look at what they write. So that's rule number 1, know who you're pitching. So if we go back to that first Printful product launch case, when I knew that my goal was to get into TechCrunch, regardless what happens, I need to get into TechCrunch. So the first thing I did is I went to TechCrunch and I went through the articles that were published, and I took a look at who's writing about topics that are closer to Latvia. Because at the time, the majority of the articles, and they still are, mostly about the States, the UK, maybe some France, and very rarely some European stuff sprinkled through. So I was very interested in targeting the people who write about the sprinkled European articles, because chances are, if you're writing about US tech, then you're not going to write about Printful, because we were starting out very locally. So I found that there was this journalist, Steve O'Hear, who has since passed away, rest in peace. But so he was the one guy who was writing about startups outside of like this one big startup area. So I thought, okay, this is my guy. So I Googled him. Turns out he had a website. And what's more, his website had a how to pitch me stories section. So very often companies, startups will, journalists will even specifically tell you how they want to receive pitches. Sometimes it might be in a case like this where they have a personal website where they say, oh yeah, reach out and tell me if you have any stories. Or it might be like in their Twitter bio where they say, yeah, open to pitches, DM me, whatever. So if you're lucky enough to have instructions, then follow their instructions. A person has gone to the trouble to tell you how they want to receive a pitch, then do it. And that's exactly what we did. So rule number 2 is to provide value. This is what we did initially because we had zero relationship. He didn't know who I am. There was no such thing as Printful. There wasn't any brand or anything. And I knew that this guy was getting a bazillion emails. So my plan early on was to get him used to my name because I was going to be the one sending him emails. And I wanted him to, step 1, open the email I sent him. So this was my master plan. What I did early on was I started sending him every few months just little summaries of interesting startups in the Baltics, because I knew that he was interested in sprinkling, the sprinkling of European tech. And I knew that he can't possibly know about everything that's going on in the Baltics. So I will be his eyes on the ground. So every once in a while, I would send him some information. So like these are some cool startups at the moment. And the majority of them weren't mine. Just that very last line, Vendon and Istabay were Drogem Group companies. And the idea was just to provide value for him, to help him in his work, to feel more knowledgeable about this region. And the master plan was eventually he would get used to seeing my name, say, oh, Julia, I know her. She always helps me out. She's always a good one. So that when I have the news, then I know that he'll open my email at least. So, but magically, this even resulted, he even responded, hey, this is great, really useful, and I've just been reading all about your company. It looks like nobody has covered Istabay, which I'd love to find out more on. Maybe introduce me to the founders. So even in my little little email that was part of my master plan, it even resulted in a publication for Istabay, which wasn't even the big plan, but it was a nice to have. Of course, he could have said the same thing about any of the other companies listed here, and I would have gladly put him in touch, because any European, any Latvian coverage, in my opinion, is a win for everyone else. Because the more we raise knowledge about Latvia as an innovating region, the easier it is. That's like the next kind of foundation, the next building block that the next companies can step up on. So then rule number 3 is get to the point. So this was, maybe a year later, maybe not a year, half a year later, sending him an email. This was my first proper pitch of, time sensitive. This is something that's happening. Not perfect, but there were lessons learned. My headline was, heads up, we're launching Printful. Hey, Steve, hope all's well with you. I wanted you to be the first to know that we're launching Printful. First was very important because journalists, turns out, have egos that like to be stroked, and they like to be the first. And Steve really liked to be the first. And so if you, if you have big news, choose wisely. Who is your most important media and offer them to be first. And only then tell everyone else, because that's your biggest trump card. So I wanted you to be the first to know that we're launching Printful, the printing and dropshipping fulfillment service. The launch is scheduled for tomorrow. That was a mistake. Don't give them 1 day's notice. You should give them like 2 weeks, ideally. So then I'm telling him about why this is impactful and why people should care. So reasons Printful will be big. And so, this is, I had no foundation for this. This is just a brainstorm on my own. So, it taps into the personal blog / amateur niche. It allows this niche to be easily monetized. And I was going through these examples. Yes, and we had also already, I had gotten those first initial publications for Startup Vitamins previously, which was kind of like we had already been starting to hint at like a bigger product. So I would love to tell you more if you are interested. And it did result in a publication. Though Steve did respond with, hey, can you give me more than 1 day? Yes, Steve, because the launch was arbitrary, right? It was already up and running. We just hadn't set, like, soft launch, it's up, it's running, it's existing. People are connecting their stores. This was just kind of like what we're saying is the launch. So the article was eventually published, probably like a week after. And even to this day, the day of that page or article launch is used as Printful's like birthday. Right. So that was that. But then there are easy other like low-hanging fruit options that I would definitely recommend taking advantage of. So one of them is help a reporter out. There are several, yes, like rewind, there are several tools and platforms where journalists on a daily basis, they write like who they're looking for. Like they know they're writing an article about a specific topic, but they need a source. So they write on these platforms, there are a variety of them, that I'm looking for someone who can talk about this. And if you think that that meets your experience, bless you, then you can submit your response and maybe in that way get featured in the article that they're creating. So this is really easy. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but you have to be quick and there's a low success rate. But it's a numbers game. Just keep doing it and eventually it'll work out. So one of them is help a reporter out, where you add your email address and you receive emails to your inbox with all of the journalist requests. They look like this. So this is one for Forbes. Looking for tech gifts for female entrepreneurs. We pitched her an idea and it resulted not in exactly that article, but she used it in a different article where we had pitched coffee pixels, which I don't know if you guys remember, there was the edible coffee bars that these guys were making ahead of their time. Then there's Twitter's #journal request. So you can go into Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and type in search #journal request, and you will see a lot of journalists that are submitting their queries. So you can see the different kinds of things that they're looking for, albeit it's very often it's very UK focused, so not always applies, but there are a lot of them. And so it's just something like every day when you have a downtime, you can just search the journal requests and see if there's anything relevant. And here you can see a lot of the times they'll tell you how to contact them. Yeah, send me bios and info and angelica@abouttimemagazine.co.uk. Or that very bottom one, message me if this applies to you. So, depending on what they request. Here's one where there is a journalist who wrote, urgently looking for entrepreneurs who have been on a co-working holiday. If that's you, please DM me some details. And with my team, we had just been on a co-working holiday to Tuscany. And so my co-founder Krista responded. The journalist responded that, oh, it's not really what we're looking for this time, but thanks. But I guess she didn't find what she was looking for, because then she came back and said, actually, we do want to hear about this. And so a few months later, oh, this hasn't aged well. Yeah, we were featured in Wired magazine with this response to a journal request. So it's one of those examples of, low-hanging fruit. The benefit can outweigh the input that was necessary. Of course, you just have to keep doing it a lot for it to pay off, but it doesn't require a lot of effort. Yeah, here's another one. This is a journalist from Sifted who was looking for defense startups. And so we put together a pitch email that we gave to a client of ours, LMT, who were doing a lot in defense tech, but also outlining a lot of different Latvian defense tech innovations. And she sent it to Mimi, and a lot of those initiatives were featured in her article afterwards. That was the article that I prepared for her. Hi, Mimi. My name's Elena. I represent LMT, a mobile innovator from Latvia. I saw your tweet and thought I'd let you know what's happening in the Baltics. And so there are all these. Right. Then she responded, Dear Elena, thanks so much for your message. I guess Mimi passed it on to a different journalist, Zosia, and the article was eventually published. So we realized that there are a lot of these different platforms. That's only the beginning. There are others. There's one called Quoted. There's one called Help a B2B Reporter Out, etc. And we realized that there's so many of these. And on a daily basis, we are checking all of them. And very often we see requests that could be useful for companies that aren't necessarily our clients. But we almost always see that there could be a Latvian company that meets that request. So what we've done is we created a Slack channel where we just drop all of these requests, and we invite our friends and our clients and adjacent companies who might be interested, who are actively looking for opportunities. And every day we drop something. And so kind of like we do the initial scan, like the initial filter for journalist requests. So if you want to join, by all means, this is a short link for you guys, invite link. Yeah, we would love to see you there. Right, so that's if you're writing to journalists. Now, if you're writing to editors, then that's an entirely different beast, because if you're writing to editors, that means that you are writing the article. Because when you're writing to a journalist, that's their job. Their job is to write articles. An editor's job is to make sure that the articles that are being published meet their vision. So in this case, you might be in a situation where you have an opinion and you want to write the opinion, and you want to have your article published under your name under a media outlet. So in that case, you wouldn't go to a journalist, you would go to an editor. It does require more time, more effort, because you have to write the piece. With the other case, the journalist does the heavy lifting. They ask you questions, they interview you, da, 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 da. But in that case, there's higher chance that you're not interesting enough for a journalist to take their time. We have found that early on, it was easier for us to write an article, a good article, and offer it to an editor because it was easy for them to greenlight it. Because they already see that, oh, this is a really good piece, it's well written, it meets our editorial interests. All I have to do is say yes. Whereas if you write to a journalist, you have to convince them that it's worth their time. For an editor, that kind of barrier is much lower. So pluses and minuses. In our case, our strong suit is writing, so it makes more sense for us to leverage this. So in order to write a story and offer it to an editor, you'll need the story itself, like actually written in a Google Doc. You'll have to have an idea of where you want to get it published. Yeah, your story. And also the contact information for the journalist, or sorry, the editor that you're looking to contact. So very often it's difficult to find which media outlet to write to. Ideally, you already know which media you want. But also often we default to like the really, really big ones, like the Forbes and the Wired and the TechCrunch. But maybe not all stories are suitable for those big, big, big ones. Very often it might be better for you to write an opinion for your own industries newsletters. And how do you find ones that accept guest posts? Well, this is a shortcut for Googling. You can add, if you're in, I don't know, fintech, then it can be fintech plus guest posts or whatever. And so you can try these different keywords in your search, and then you'll come up with some options. So I go female entrepreneurship plus in URL right for us, then we get all of these. Then you just follow them, find how to connect, how to pitch them stuff. So you can repeat that stuff. If you know which media you want to write for, then that's also an option. Most media outlets will have a contact us or an about us page where they have the editor's contact details. You can search for them. Sometimes, very often, journalists are on Twitter. Very often, their contact information will be in their bios. So like there are ways to find email addresses. Yeah, press at the news. There you go. So then you have to write the article, which is arguably really hard, harder for some than for others. So one option is to write it yourself. That's cheaper, and it will be more likely that it comes out exactly the way you want it. Like in my case, for example. But if you don't want to write it to yourself, of course, you can outsource it. There are different outsourcing opportunities. I wouldn't recommend using AI to write an article that you're pitching to a media outlet, or at least not entirely. Persistence is key. So this is the pitch. I was showing you guys my viral article, the 52-17 minute, the break ratio. This is the exact pitch that I used to pitch that story. But at first, I had pitched it to all of the biggest news outlets, The Next Web and Forbes and Lifehacker and this and that. And they all either just ignored me or said no. So then I reduced my expectations and went to kind of like a second tier media list, and the Daily Muse was on that list. And so this is my pitch. We can dissect it. The headline states exactly what is going to be in the contents of the email so that a person already knows what's going to be in there before even they open the article. So I say Daily Muse pitch. They know that I'm pitching to them. Do you guys know what pitch means? When you offer someone the story. And so I tell them what the pitch is going to be. It's going to be the one common trait of the most productive employees. Now, here's what I did. You know how in emails, you've got like the subject line, and then sometimes you can see the beginning of the text of the email? Well, in the beginning of the text of my email, I wrote the continuation, like the answer to that pitch. So the one common trait of the most productive employees, breaks. So in theory, even without opening the email, they've already got the entire gist of the entire article that I'm offering them. And only then I say, hi, my name's Julia. I want to pitch you this story. So then I tell them I've analyzed the top 10% most productive employees and found their common habit. They work for 50 minutes, break for 20 minutes. So like really condensing the entire idea in one line, telling them upfront. And then I, go into details. I tell them my transparency thing, like I work for this company. And then I tell them why they should trust me because I have already written for other media outlets. And link to those. So then they already see that there's a track record. Other companies, other media outlets have vetted me. I'm successful in this. So they don't have to like be fearful about taking a chance on me. And I've also attached the article here so they can see it. They can see it up front. And so they can just like say yes or no to it. Right. So that was that. And I didn't hear anything back from them. And then I followed up not once, but twice. So I sent them 3 emails about this. And finally they responded with, hey, Julia, sorry for the delay. We'd love to publish it and an editor will be in touch shortly. So it's the lesson here not only is write a good pitch, but also don't be afraid to follow up and don't be afraid to follow up twice because very often you'll do like a follow-up once and assume that, oh, okay, well, they didn't respond to my follow-up, so I'll assume that they're not interested. But in this case, I had to follow up another time for them to say yes. And that ended up being like my career's most viral moment. So be persistent is my only suggestion. Right, takes time, but the result is unbeatable. And ideally, after the article has been published, offer to stay in touch and ask them, like, can I send you other articles in the future? So that they say yes, and then you can continue to develop that relationship and drive and create more articles for yourself in that future. That's what we did here with crypto coin news. And the editor really liked what we were writing. So yeah, so after we had published that article, we said, we've also been working on this post, 8 ways blockchain technology will change gaming for the better. Again, link to the article. Would you be interested in publishing it? And the editor responded, yes, please. Last articles were great. So this was a case where it was very convenient that we were already working on an article that would be in that niche that we were already able to offer the journalist. But even if we didn't have that article, I would ask him, hey, can I send you more stuff in the future? Yeah, so in the end, it all comes down to human interaction and human relationships. I think I've connected here, interesting. Oh, you guys hear me okay in the chat? Cool. And like people are humans on the other side as well. So if you talk to them like a human and treat them like a human, then that's the best possible approach. And you know, that also goes for like human interaction. One of my best hacks is developing relationships with journalists at conferences and events. Very often at startup conferences and whatever, you'll have journalists that are coming in, and if there's like a mobile networking app, you can usually filter attendees by badge type. And usually there's a media badge type, and then you can go and talk. Or, you know, if you're just walking around the venue and you see someone like that has a media badge, and you can just like strike up a conversation. And rather than like going into sales mode, just learn about them. Oh, how are you enjoying the conference? What brought you here? Because inevitably they will ask, oh, and what do you do? And then you can tell them about your startup. When I was walking down the corridor of Tech Chill with a client of mine who had come to the event, he says, okay, introduce me to some media. So yeah, okay, sure, come with me. So we're walking down. Now there's a journalist. They say, oh yes, this is this such and such, and this is journalist who writes for us. Da, da, da. And he goes, first text is, will you write about my startup? No. The answer to that kind of question would be no. The poor journalist was a bit stunned. So maybe don't do that. Okay, so how do you write an email? Yeah, no, exactly. There was a request for templates in the expectations survey thing that Jan sent over. So this would be kind of my suggested template for a pitch email. At a different event, I was asked, well, okay, what does your process look like when you're writing you know, you have a story and you want to reach out to journalists? What does that actually look like? Well, this is how, you know, we have a press release with news. This is what our media list looks like, where we find the media outlet, the name of the person we're contacting, their contact information, and then we check off who we've connected with. So that's just, you know, simple spreadsheet. Oh gosh, landing pages. Okay, now, okay, so that's the completion of the pitching and writing for other blog stuff. Are there any questions around that topic?
Sorry, I had a question about this Slack, so I opened
Okay.
it and okay, there I saw there is a, for example, request from Insider or Inc. for seeking stories, etc., etc. So if we notice something like this and we think that okay, maybe we could be have interesting to something, what should we do? should
Right.
we contact the person who published it, or should we
Yeah.
look for an email in this?
So in this case, I agree that Krista did not do a good job at setting up the expectations about what to do there. But we have just written a blog post about how to respond to these different situations. Haven't published it yet, but it will be. And this specifically comes from a platform called Quoted. And to respond to this request, you have to go into the Quoted platform. It's free to create a profile, but then you'll go in, you'll find this request, and then answer the journalist through that platform. And if you don't know, then please comment under that thing. Like, yeah, I have an idea. How can I respond to it?
Yeah, I have been playing around with medium.com, such platform you definitely know. What's your opinion about how can we use it for business and overall for Medium and other platforms? Is really writing still relevant in with YouTube and AI? You know, I have a
Yeah.
feeling that people read less and less, especially in YouTube, Medium, because many of the articles are generated by AI, so people don't trust them. What's your view?
Yeah, so I mean, Medium's an interesting case, at least it was before AI, because from one perspective, you were able to write something and then access a totally unknown, like reader group. So, if I was writing on my own blog, then people who follow my blog are the ones who would read it. But if I published on Medium, then it's possible that Medium would show my article to like totally new people, and I would gain exposure to a lot of new like user segments. The downfall of Medium is that you don't own the platform, and therefore you are limited as to what you can do with this new audience. So the crux became, how do I capture them? Like, you couldn't do a content upgrade like we did on the Printful blog with like the digital templates. You can't collect their emails to inform them about a future article. So there were limitations in that sense. In the most cases where I saw people developing successful Medium platforms, I saw them eventually migrating to their own owned platform so that they can own the data, they can own the traffic data and everything, and manipulate the platform based on their own needs. Um, yeah, and I feel like the kind of like the same thing is going on with Substack right now. Like, people are using Substack because it's a convenient way to monetize their newsletters, but at the same time, they're finding limitations. And some people who went really seriously into Substack and developed quite the following and monetized it are now looking for ways how to extract it out of the Substack environment. So pluses and minuses.
We'll still read.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think people still read interesting stuff. Like, they're not going to read the AI shit because it's not interesting. But then the question is, does it make sense on a platform like a Medium? I don't know. I think we were talking during the break about how people will always gravitate towards human-centric stuff, and you can tell when someone's writing from their own voice. They have uncommon sentence structure. It's not stuff that like a LLM would generate, because it's not usual. It's characteristic to you. And I know that some like AI pros would say, "Oh, you can upload the content that you've written that will say that, learn your voice." But I don't know. My voice is unpredictable, so how can they know? Um, so I don't know. I think that the written word does have a place, and people will be interested in it, and people will seek it out. And I think the pendulum will swing so far in the other direction that people will be starved for human-made content, and that I feel like that's the inevitable direction that we're going in. That it's like people's added value is going to be like, always human. But I don't know about that specifically on Medium. Sorry.
Okay, connected with this question, maybe you will tell about this later, but okay, for example, we made, as we think, interesting content,
Mhm.
blog post, but our social networks or our blog isn't, don't have any viewers yet. Okay, we can try to send it to some high rank journalists, editors, etc., but again, no guarantee. Social networks, our social networks are seeking for influencers. Okay, maybe. So they probably, as a colleague mentioned, is sort of probably, as understood, article aggregator or something like you can where you can post also interesting articles and hoping that this source will bring some traffic to your perspective. Are there another this kind of aggregators or no chance?
Uh, I know that there used to be like Stumble Upon used to be really big for like finding new and interesting articles. But I haven't found any tools that you're describing right now in terms of article aggregators. But I think that in that sense, the keywords will do the trick. Yeah, I mean, the beginning is the hardest because the hardest part is getting the snowball moving. And then once it is moving, then it's easier just to kind of keep adding fuel to the fire. But the beginning is for sure the hardest. So I have a lot of empathy for those early days and figuring out what content works because maybe something resonates with your audience more than something else. And maybe one platform has works better for you than others. And it'll be take some time to figure out which that is and also like which works for your team. But all of you.
So I like the direction that where you explained the difference between pitching to journalist and editor. But for as a startup, like you as journalists and editors, you have lives, you have to like eat and survive. And so where do the costs come in? Like is it paid for when the pitch gets accepted, when it's out to publish? Because okay, I understand the part that the journalist is writing, so we pay the journalist for the writing. But if let's say I write an article myself, sent to you, and you say that's it, so where is the where do I have to pay in this pipeline and like overall in the process that you're explaining?
So ideally, in this pipeline, you're never paying. This is all $0 budget processes. The idea is that what you have to say is so interesting that journalists will be interested just as is, or your article has so much value that an editor will want to publish it directly. If you are paying, then that's not PR anymore. That's a marketing expense. And I would avoid that because as soon as it's like a sponsored post, then it will be noted as a sponsored post, and then other people reading those articles will trust it less, first of all. And second of all, very often these sponsored posts won't be featured in the same locations in the media outlet. It will often be in like a sub tab far away from the main content. So you won't be getting the value of that. So ideally, you're not paying at all. And especially, and like there are cases later on where paying for a sponsored article makes sense. Like with Test of Lab, we had a press release. There was a platform who said, yeah, we'd be happy to post your press release, but it's going to cost $200. My initial response was, yeah, no thanks. We're not interested then. But then the Test of Lab side came back and said, actually, our SEO people say that this is interesting for us because that domain authority is high. And if that gives us a backlink, then we have more value from that. So in that case, they were interested in taking it. But if you're at an early stage and you don't have a lot of money, I say don't pay for publicity at this stage. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So the economics of the media industry is that they're most likely gaining their funding either from paid subscribers or ad money or sponsorship posts, which is funding the journalists who are able to go and write. And then what we're offering is kind of like a loophole where we are offering a contributed article, which of course has economic benefit for us, but it can't, and that's the thing, and it can't be salesy because as soon as it's salesy, they're not interested in posting that. It has to be value driven and it has to be interesting, like outside of like a just us talking about our product. Right, and then that's the loophole that we're exploiting here to have those editors that are interested in publishing it.
Thank you for the use cases. They all made sense to me, except for the who is who in Lithuanian crypto market? Because if the objective is to get exposure to your clients and Latvian enterprises, then how did it serve this objective? Or was it a different
I
objective?
think that that story came about because we were talking to the editor, and the editor said we had pitched them a who's who in the Latvian crypto space. They said, yeah, yeah, that's great. And then they said, can you write us one for the Lithuanian one? And I figured, well, it's a relationships game, right? So we want to be helpful to the editors. Said, sure, we'll write that. So we kind of did some like free work for him, and then after that we were able to offer him an article from our client, essentially.
Thank you. So it's for maintaining a relationship. And then when you showed the defense tech example, it was signed as Elena. So
That's
is
right.
it a thing for defense tech that you use your agent name, like fake
So
name?
Elena was my client. So in some cases, a so I'm an agency, and editors, journalists know that I'm an agency. Um, I don't hide it. They see it in my, they can Google my name. They can go to my domain. I'm an agency. But very often, a journalist will want to hear from the startup, from the source itself. So I'm a middleman. And sometimes that's helpful to be able to broker a relationship between like a very busy CEO or whatever. But very often it will be more successful if the startup itself reaches out. And so in this case, for whatever reason, we decided that it would be more effective if we had our client reach out directly with their innovations, that would be listened. Oh, yeah, because this journalist was notoriously known for not liking or not liaising with agencies. So in this case, it was like, all right, we have this knowledge and we will write it for you, but you have to send it out. We will do everything in your place and we'll give you the email, and now you send it to the journalist directly. Yeah. So pluses and minuses of being an agency. Okay. So then we've got the landing pages. Landing pages are a super useful tool for guiding your users towards a specific action that you want. And so this is one case where we created like a full guide to holiday marketing. And it had all kinds of templates, and it had the calendar about when to do this and when to do that. And this was all in the interests of growing our newsletter subscribers. And of course, also helping our clients. And so we will also use this as ads. So people who weren't already using Printful were able to come and download this free guide and then become more acquainted with the brand. Another interesting use of landing pages is kind of like the hidden landing page. So there's the concept of jobs to be done. So for every job to be done, there's its own landing page. So your product can be used in multiple different ways. And a person who is looking for a solution, they will be searching with their own keywords. I'm looking for a solution to a problem, or I'm looking for this, this, this. And for the best results, hopefully you have a landing page that answers specifically that. And like your main page can be, the generic, the one that explains the product itself. But ideally, you have lots of different landing pages for every different case that a person might want to Google. In this case, Mapon, which is also a Dragame Group company, what they wanted to do was test a new market segment, which was a new white label solution. So rather than what they do is they create little boxes that you can install in your cars. So if you're like a delivery company, you can put one in all of your different delivery cars, and then you can see on a map where they're driving around, how much fuel they're using, optimize their routes, whatever. But the way they work is you buy the box from Mapon and the software. And what they wanted to test is give it like as a white label to a different company, and that company can put their logo on it and sell it as their service, not a map-on product, but whatever, like Hertz or CarGuru or whatever. So that was one way, and then by having it hidden to, like, you couldn't find this through their main page, because if one of their existing clients saw that it could be also white labeled, then they might be more inclined to just do that themselves. Yeah. Long way around saying that you can test different market segments with different landing pages. This is part of the jobs to be done perspective, that you can creating a landing page for every case. So with Printful, we had a bazillion different landing pages, you know, t-shirts for brand merchandise, t-shirts for soccer teams, t-shirts for bachelorette parties, whatever. So that each person who's searching for those keywords, they're able to find. Lunch break. Yeah, we are pretty much there. 2 seconds. Okay, so this is one, t-shirts for geeks. That was start of vitamins, because we realized that's what people were searching for. This was a April Fool's Day prank that we played with inspiring quotes on posters. We put them on condom packages, and then when you click to add to cart, then you'd get a haha April Fools, and then people shared their frustration online or delight. Of course, video content, if you're able to do that, definitely do that. Visuals, infographics, always helpful. Like, there are different kinds of content that can be harnessed. That's all to say, content marketing is an all-platform deal, but you don't have to be doing all of it. You just have to figure out what works for you. So, lunch break indeed. Thank you, and then we'll be back for the second part, where we will be building marketing strategies. Hey, hello, hello. Welcome back to the chat. You guys in the house? Hope you had a good lunch break. We're just waiting for everyone to reconvene. Ooh, hello. Okay. Wow. All right. So that was the microphone effect, the silencing effect. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope everyone is healthy and fed and happy now after a lunch break. Now we are getting into the more practical side of our workshop today. And the goal of this session is for you guys to leave with a practical, usable marketing plan in terms of having a list of your next tasks and what you're going to do with a clear reason as to why you're doing it. But to get started, we're just going to go through a few different marketing channels just to refresh our memories, though some of it will be kind of already covered earlier in the morning. But how do I move this forward? Click maybe. There we go. Okay, so one thing that we didn't really talk about this morning, is ads. And when it comes to a marketing strategy, that's one thing that has to be considered, is the ads aspect. And when I was talking about the different startups that we had started out with at the Draugiem group, it's very important to note that when we started Printful, there was never a time that we weren't using ads. And so we had learned different e-commerce lessons along the way, but also developed a following and an understanding of who we're selling to and why we're selling to them. So that always went in tandem. And there are some cases where ads will be an aspect that you can't really avoid. When you're looking for conversions, it is a very reliable tool to use to identify and attract and convert the right people. So I don't know if you guys have seen ads for these Loop earplugs. I've been seeing them for years. This is one, yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And this is one of those examples that they have built their marketing strategy on ads. And I feel like this has also kind of impacted um, the reality for other e-commerce brands. And there's the 7 touch principle of new products purchasing, right? The concept that you have to have met a product at least 7 times in different ways before a person is ready mentally, conceptually to make that conversion, to make that plunge and buy that product. I feel like Loop earplugs is going for like 1,000 touch principle, but it works. It works, and like there are a ton of people who have said that I caved and I bought it after seeing all of these ads. Um, and I think it's absolutely astounding. But that is one way to consider things. But when I'm talking to startups that are creating a product, like a tangible B2C product, and they say, "Well, how should I reach out? How should I go about selling this product? What's my marketing strategy?" And I think that they're in a really difficult position because with the B2C consumer goods product, you are up against people like these Loop earplug people who have just like millions that are pumped into ads campaigns. Um, and that's like you'll have to be really, really creative about how to generate that buzz without it. Um, One thing that we did early on was we realized that the best ads are the ones where there is a human face and also one that looks at you. So this was a GIF ad, like a video ad, where it looks like a photo, but then she lifts her eyes and she looks straight at you. Unfortunately, this platform doesn't support the moving GIF thing. But we were even using ads for HR talent recruitment, and we used photos of people like looking at a camera and like pointing their finger, like you, like the old school American war recruitment videos, like we need you. And then people kind of stop their scrolling, like, oh, they're talking to me. So that's one way to make use of visuals. But then like a huge one is influencer marketing. If you're working with and dealing with a B to C product, then influencer marketing is possibly one of your best returns on investment, because we were talking earlier about how what people trust most is a recommendation. And if they have created these parasocial relationships with some of these influencers, then this recommendation is going to be something that works. I was talking to this one marketer who was working with a startup that grew exponentially, and he was the CMO. And I asked him, well, like, what was your approach? He said, I didn't do anything else other than podcast ads. What do you mean podcast ads? Like these are like the long form, the talking thing. Not only are like the not only is it an ad, like an ad slot, but it's the people who are the podcast hosts, the ones who are trusted by by the viewer, by the, I don't know, listener. The podcast host is the one that's talking about how fantastic this product is, and they usually try to say, "Oh yeah, I've been using this for months, and it was really great," and then they create this better narrative around it than was even required. So this marketing guy was saying like, yeah, the best money he ever spent was podcast placements. And I asked him, well, like, what was your budget like? He said, oh, minimum 200,000 a month. So like great, and he believed that that was a really great return on investment, but that's just to give you an idea about the kinds of budgets that other brands are working with to get the word out. So when you're thinking about your marketing channels and your marketing strategies, then realize that like there is big money at play, and very often that kind of attention also demands big money. And that's also one of the reasons why a lot of startups are raising huge amounts of money. A lot of it is to push that message out. So not everyone is bootstrapping like we are. Right. Of course, there are some more cost-efficient ways that you can go about ads, and probably the most cost-efficient is retargeting. So if a person has come to your website, that means that, and you have your tracking pixel in, installed, then that means they already, first of all, know your product, and second of all, know your brand. So they have already displayed some sort of interest. And so using a retargeting ad, you're able to just kind of remind them of their interest. And this is particularly useful because retargeting ads are less expensive than creating ads to a completely new audience. And it's a lot easier to convince a person to buy your product if they already know your brand, because you don't have to go through the whole education cycle. You don't have to explain to a person what you're doing. They already do. They already know. They've already been to your site. So retargeting ads are, in terms of ad spend, if you're going to do ads, then this is the best use, like bang for buck. Yeah, you can set it up on your Meta business pages, ads pages. So yeah, the few things to do: set up retargeting and build your email lists. Few things not to do, we touched on this earlier on this morning, is paid articles or sponsored posts. Of course, there is a time and a place for them, but I would say early on isn't that time and place. We've had a few clients who we have set up like Forbes Council accounts, or entrepreneur.com has a similar program where you can apply if you are like an entrepreneur that has achieved a lot of stuff, and they are happy to give you an opportunity to contribute articles, but you pay like 2,000 euros a year for that, and then in turn you can publish like an article per month on their website. So if you divide 2,000 by 12, then that's like a very small amount to pay for an article on Forbes every month. But that's not going to be like the linchpin of your marketing strategy. And also, you also have to have reached like a certain amount of turnover and revenue to be able to qualify for that stuff. But it does help for search engine optimization needs. Very often these articles are syndicated. They're republished by other niche media outlets. So like there are other things that can be gained from like these sort of paid opportunities. So I'm not saying that they are never a good idea, but I would say that maybe for like the early stage, not yet. I would also recommend not pursuing the printed media ads right now. Again, there's a time and place, but like a lot of times I've noticed that there are various publications that prey on early stage companies and say, oh, we have this magazine, we deliver it to so many people all over the United States, and then an early stage company goes, oh, this actually kind of sounds like a good deal. And inevitably, it's a scam. I've had clients that have taken advantage of that opportunity because it looks like a good opportunity, and indeed they do print it. They do print the copies and they send you a copy in the mail and everything looks great, but like you can't test. First of all, there's no proof that they've distributed it. Second of all, you don't know who it's been distributed to. And third of all, you have no idea if there's any benefit from it. So they say, oh yeah, we put it in all the major kiosks and we put it in all the major universities and the offices and the this and the that. It's yeah, I mean we tried that too, like a QR code and then take them straight to our landing page, but like the traffic was negligible. And of course it's just one, I'd like they're probably putting together a magazine that's full of these. It's a business hustle in itself, right? These people are just generating money for themselves. So like we've tried it. I think that it's potentially just like a waste of money. So be careful of those. So on the social side of things, there are some interesting uses that I wanted to point out. So like, how does a company get noticed on social media? And I took predominantly LinkedIn as an example because, to be honest, I was scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and couldn't find any good examples of companies that were popping up on my feed. So there's one like very clear option is that, you know, you pay. Like any social media platform, it's very difficult for a company page to gain visibility. It's very rare that you will see a company post just served to you right off the bat. So the the one way to get around that is either to create a promoted post like this. So on the left-hand side, you can see it's you're being offered a content upgrade, like the carrot that's being added and offered. So they're making use of that. Yeah, and then on the right side, you're also being offered to download a product, an e-product. So yeah, but in both cases, these are promoted posts. Otherwise, they never would have popped up on my timeline. But even if it was a company that I was following, then I don't know about you guys, but if I go through my LinkedIn feed, then I'm not seeing company updates being served to me. The option that I see that most often works, that is most often used, is that, like, yes, have the company's social media, but don't expect that people will find it by itself. And then what I will usually find is that its founders or employees or whoever are sharing those posts to their own personal accounts. So this is a case with Arctic 15, which is the startup conference in Finland, and Jan, who is the executive chairman, sharing it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen this post, but thanks to Jan sharing it, that's what he's done. I do the same thing for my own company. Here's a, is this a blog post? I think it might be a blog post. Yeah. There was a post on our own LinkedIn page. Of course, I don't expect anyone to see it. And my personal LinkedIn account has a lot more connections than my company page does anyways. So I'm sharing it to gain more reach. And so as a result, this little piece was able to get 2,500 impressions, which is a whole lot more than pieces that aren't shared. And then there's like the creative approach. And this I liked because, like, you don't often see creativity in LinkedIn, but then when you do, then it really stands out and is rewarded. So in this case, they're looking for survey responses, and they're saying, we locked up our social media manager. She can't come out until we get 100 survey responses. And so, you know, there are a ton of comments there. So, I mean, that's the case for any social media channel since time immemorial. If you're able to do something interesting and creative, then that will yield results because it'll be different. So worth keeping in mind. So from email, so if we're thinking about yeah, company email addresses, then we've got like a simple reminder, you know, a product is back in stock. Here's an example of a B2B company and like their unique approach to email marketing. This is Superpath is a marketplace for content marketers, and rather than just like talking about their platform, they talk about content marketing by itself. They're just providing value about the topic that the niche that they serve. Oh yeah, here's another one, the Abilio email. And it's not about the product itself, it's about, there was all kinds of news, like new blog posts that they had, new features that they had going on. And then what I really liked was this one, that this person who is just an artist, even an artist who had created her own email marketing newsletter, she's an embroidery artist and offers courses every once in a while if you want to learn embroidery with her. And so she was very smart in that she created this email list from people who were interested in finding out about her new courses. But then at the same time, when she has an exhibit, then she's able to email all of her people and say, hey, come to my exhibit. So you don't even have to be like a startup business owner to benefit from a newsletter. So then if we're talking about websites, there's some aspects that I wanted to point out. So this is the current Printful website. And the one thing that really jumps out at me is that they have packed it full of social proof. Like everywhere you look, you have social proof. So at the very top, you've got the Trustpilot and Shopify ratings. The image there, it's rotating. It changes every few seconds. And it's a feature of a different client and the different designs that they make. Then it's the same Trustpilot, Shopify, 6,200 five-star reviews on Shopify. Like the entire above the fold is like essentially only reviews. So it's clear that they have identified that that is what's working most to get people to convert into users. So this is one thing that I'm often asked about for companies who maybe don't have a product that is like easily convertible on a website. And people ask, well, can I just like have people contact me? And I usually say like, I don't think that's a good idea. But this is a case from Testov Lab, and I think they do it very well because their client is very likely very unique. They don't have an easy, like selectable service with like an easy, obvious pricing. So everything is very custom. So they need you to reach out proactively and they need to find out what you need in order for them to create an offer. So they, instead of having a call to action like sign up or subscribe or whatever, they've got receive an offer, which by itself wouldn't be great, but at the bottom they have those little checkboxes, customized proposal, commitment-free, same-day response. And so I think that these promises definitely help people take the plunge and leave their emails. And of course, you do have to follow up from the business side to make that happen. But yeah, in their case as well, they also have a lot of social proof. They've got clients that they work with at the bottom, customer review at the top as their main image. So yeah, those were some unique approaches that I wanted to highlight. Yeah, this is LMT's new website design. They're going the landing page jobs to be done route. Right. Okay, now we're getting into like the practical stuff. So here, I hope that everyone has like a computer or something, or at least one per team, so that you guys can get practically into giving this all a try. The goal here is to end up with a ready-made strategy with a list of tasks to do that serves a purpose. So are you guys like divided into teams, into your teams right now? Or like Zoom people? I guess you guys can't be. But so we're gonna have some time. I'm gonna ask you a question and you're gonna have some time to converse amongst yourselves. And so the first question is going to be for you guys to determine like what you need your marketing to do for you, because each person's marketing strategy is going to be different, and different people need their marketing strategies to do different things. So in other words, what we're creating or identifying is a marketing objective. Now there can be a lot of marketing objectives. I've identified some that are possibly more likely for early stage startups. There are more like lead generation, customer retention, et cetera, et cetera. You can of course search online for more, but right now I want you guys to choose one main objective that you want to build out a strategy for. So these are some. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys need like 5 minutes to decide amongst yourselves or like 30 seconds to choose an objective. You decided. What's yours? User signups. Cool. Yeah, like right now I'm only interested in going into Canada. It could also be your first, but that would just mean like the only focus is about this one product. Is anyone stuck on which one to choose? Well, you should start with one. But this process will be replicable. You can do it for as many different um, objectives as you would want. All right. Everyone in the Zoom call, are you guys all, have you chosen? Or anyone struggling? Let's start with one, because in theory, you can create an entire strategy around, and the strategy will differ based on the objective. Look, it depends. It depends. It depends on what it is.
Just in case the questions, let's ask them in mics so
Oh,
all of
sorry.
us can hear it, so we don't need to answer them twice.
Yeah, the question was which one to start with at first, but as I mentioned, it could be very different based on your product. Others can just be like increasing traffic to the website, but I think that
And the user conversions would be from like the ones that buy, from
yeah,
just
so
a
getting
viewer
people
to a
to buy.
buyer.
Yeah. So for example, at Desktime, the company I worked with, they had a lot of free user signups, but none of them were converting into paying, or like a small amount were converting into paying users.
Yeah.
So we had an exercise about how we can get them more to convert.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would imagine that it's very possible that a common a common objective would be user signups. Because once you have those signups, then you can get them to use the product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How are you guys doing? Okay, so I guess let's assume that we've all got one. Everyone got one? Cool. Okay, now I want for you guys to discuss amongst yourselves about what is your unfair advantage. Hopefully, everyone has an unfair advantage, and this is going to be something that hopefully makes it easier and more logical about why you're doing what you're doing. So, for example, I can tell a story about so with all the Drogium group products, we started doing the BeHappy.me, the inspiring posters, because at that time everyone was sharing inspiring quotes. So that would be the unfair advantage that, the marketing is already working in our favor. People are already in a mood to share. Or right now, for example, I have an agency that very much focuses on English language content creation and distribution. And I'm a native English speaker. And so a lot of people will think that that is something to be desired. So when choosing between different agencies, they'll choose me because I'm a native speaker. Is it true? Not necessarily. I have writers on my team who are better writers than I am, who aren't native speakers, but that's my unfair advantage. I'm a native speaker, and people for that reason choose me. In your case, that might be you have experience in this industry. That might be you have unique knowledge. That might be first mover's advantage. But try and define what your unfair advantage would be. Sure. Life experience, wisdom. There is one team that's saying that their unfair advantage is age. You're already getting a thumbs up. Does anyone already know their unfair advantages? Sorry, hold on. Do you want to share in the microphone?
I don't know if it's exactly unfair advantage, but we have Sleepify, which is an AI coach for sleeping. So when you wake up in the middle of the night, you can talk to it instead of getting another sleep exercise. So our advantage is Gen Z feels overstimulated, a fact, and they don't want any more meditations thrown at them. That's from Reddit. They want someone to vent out to and listen to them, and they're not ready to wait for 2 weeks to meet their therapist and pay the price.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. What other unfair advantages do we have in the house? Oh, team back there.
Yeah, so we're still talking about what our unfair advantage is. Tom just said that, yeah, well, but we're doing things better than our competitors, but I think that's fair advantage, if you're just better. But our unfair advantage is perhaps that we have a lot of social proof. So we're making a product that can help people make money on Amazon. Let me just put it that way. And this field is overall just very scammy. Like there are a lot of influencers who give you advice or try to sell you a course, but they don't really know what they're talking about. And how they make money is by selling you the course. But we have a lot of social proof because 2 people on our team just are using this tool, are making money this way. So we have at least like 2 or 3 stories that we can put on our website and talk
Great.
about them.
Yeah, and really double down on that and focus a potential story on that already lived experience and proof. Yeah, I like that. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're independent. Cool. Independent and innovative. All right, guys, what are you guys thinking about? Microphone, microphone, microphone.
And where is this, those, what's your options? Okay. And your question is?
My question is, what's your unfair advantage?
I guess he's my partner, but he's disagreeing. Japan and Korean market access and knowledge.
So I
But
am.
he's disagreeing.
So you're saying that you have.
No, he has, but he has.
Got
I
it.
don't. But he's disagreeing.
Oh, he's disagreeing probably because he knows someone who
He's
has more
shy.
knowledge.
He's
Is that
shy.
why?
Just he's shy.
I guess it depends on who you're comparing yourself to.
Yes.
Anyone in the chat want to share your unfair advantages? Wait.
Well, we are working on hardware, so the solution would have been previously possible, but we have a system on module advantage from electronic perspective, which makes it more efficient. And then we have communication protocol advantage being NB-IoT, which makes it more safe and ensures more stable coverage. So the things that we ensure remain the same, but you send data in a more secure way, and the electronics behind it is also more efficient.
All right. Sounds great. Do we have anyone in the chat sharing? I don't think so. All right, chat. Someone tell me what we are unfair advantage. There we go. We are developing an eye treatment protocol for kids with amblyopia. And our unfair advantage is that we have a mom on the team who has a personal experience with this diagnosis, whereas our competitors are doing it more from clinical perspective. Yeah, sounds like a great unfair advantage. Firsthand lived experience. I think that's very convincing and persuasive when you're speaking to your potential clients that like, I know where you're coming from. You can really double down on this. And I've done this myself and I went through it and I was going through all these solutions and I couldn't find any solutions and and the narrative kind of builds itself. Okay, hold on, microphone. Okay, so none of you guys are agreeing with each other, but you're a team.
Oh, okay. So we found one competitor now, and they haven't thought so far. We can make it much better.
Okay, so you're 1 minute market research. Great. Okay. So, right. So what do you know about how to get to your customer? So all of you guys, I hope, understand, you have a kind of a vague idea about who your ideal customer is, right? Right? Oh, okay, hold on. Ugh. Okay. Okay, just curious. Why do you think that competitors don't have moms for whom they consult and test hypothesis with? That's a good question. Maybe their communication doesn't reflect that. Okay, another one. We are building a digital afterlife management system. Our aim is to simplify end-of-life planning, helping individuals and their loved ones securely manage, organize, and protect legal, financial, and personal affairs. Great. And what is your unfair advantage? Oh, the first goal is driving new user signups. Great. And so now you just have to figure out your unfair advantage. Whoa. Okay. Okay. So now you're going to need a place to write things down and possibly discuss amongst your team. Trust barrier is your unfair. Okay. I'm going to ask you questions. But I mean, in general, the question is like, where did they hang out? Where did they spend their time? And now we're going to have questions, specific questions to answer. So hopefully, I hope that everyone has like a document to write these down on, or a piece of paper, it doesn't matter. So now I want you to write these down. We're going to need them later. So question 1, which social media channels, if any, do your clients spend the most time on? Is this a Facebook situation? Is it a LinkedIn situation? Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, Snapchat? Everyone got one? Yeah. The question was, is this question applicable to B2G? Because the people who are buying your product are still going to be somewhere. They're still humans. Yep. Yeah. So the question was, how are we supposed to know? Is that from our assumptions or knowledge? Yeah, right now we're working on assumptions. In theory, in time, you might get to a point where you're able to do some market research. You're able to ask your existing audience, what do you prefer? Right now, we're going off of hypothesis. All right, everyone got a social media channel written down? Okay. Okay. Now this is possibly more difficult. Which media outlets do your clients read, if any? Now you might need to take some time to Gen Z reading. mm. I'm gonna go grab a chair. You guys keep thinking. Oh, no, thank you very much. Okay. So when I'm thinking about media outlets that our clients read, then it could be a niche media outlet. So like, where do they go to for their reliable niche information? Like if you're in the IoT world, is there like a trusted IoT source, or is there a trusted tech news source that everyone reads? Um, maybe if it's, did they just read their local country's like main business outlet? Is it like an Irnaud or something like that? How are you guys doing? Oh, our clients mostly read competitors' content marketing. That's an interesting one. Well, it's worth writing it down. I think there will be something else related to that. Everyone have an idea? Something written down? Some sites, some URLs? Okay, we move forward. Okay, which podcasts do your clients listen to? This could also be rephrased as which radio channels, which audio content. The answer can also be our specific niche doesn't have any necessarily related podcasts. These might also require like some more market research later on. And by later on, I mean in 10 minutes or at a later date. Okay, then the next question is, this is possibly the most important question. Where does your client go to find new tools to solve their problem? So I think in this case, you guys had mentioned competitors' blogs. Google, okay, that's a good one. ChatGPT, yeah. Okay, and then, too fast? Yeah, the question was, are there other words other than problems could this be? Like, yeah, so they're challenges, they're obstacles, pain points. Yeah. I mean, in relation to whatever you're offering them. All right, can we move forward to the next one? Mhm. Right, and which events does your client go to? Or are there events that they frequent? Okay, so does everyone have a few events, trade shows, whatever that might be? Listed? Okay, then we move forward. Um, okay, now we move towards how can I make it easy for myself? What's working to your favor? So in any given moment, there are tools, there are trends that are going on that make some things easier and some things harder. So, for example, when from a marketing perspective. So when Instagram had just launched Instagram stories, they were really promoting them. So if you were putting anything in stories, then it was likely to do really well. Right now, YouTube is really promoting shorts. So rather than investing a lot of time into your long form video, maybe you take advantage of the YouTube shorts. Um, One of the things that was making it really easy for us back in the behappy.me days was that everyone was sharing quotes. So we built a business around quotes. And so the marketing is built into the product itself. So the marketing strategy is driving the product development. So could that be, I don't know, don't know if this is relevant now, but for a while, TikTok Shop was like the hot thing. If you could get your product in TikTok Shop, then you were doing well. Sorry? Threads? Oh, Instagram Threads. Yeah, so new social platforms. Right. So I guess the question is there a trend going on that you can harness that will make your message spread further? Something that's related to you. So I don't know, maybe yeah, like a tool that's really driving visibility for something. Yeah, at one point, you know, it was the Medium platform. The idea here is to create this exercise to think about how we can work smarter, not harder. And we might not necessarily have something that answers that for us, but if there is, then that would certainly inform our marketing strategy. Or maybe it's like I don't know, the segment that you're after is currently all really reading this one media outlet, or everyone's on this one platform. Okay. We move forward. Okay, so hopefully by now everyone has written down these answers. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a table. You can use the table I've created. This is a template that I put together. You can access it via this URL and copy it and then work on it yourself. I like it when everything's all colorful and color-coded, but you can feel free to create your layout however you want it. But in general, what we have on the left-hand side of the column is the marketing channels. So you're going to write down the different marketing channels that are applicable to you. So those are going to be the ones that you wrote down earlier on. So the social media channels, which ones are they? Maybe specific newsletters, specific media outlets, specific events, where they go to find answers to their pain points. I had to give it some kind of name, otherwise it was like a garble of a lot of stuff. Temp because it's a short form of template. 1, 2, 3 is just numbers. So yeah, so you can take advantage of this. And now what I would want is to explain to you guys how to make use of this. So in that first column, that first red one, you have a list of all of your different marketing channels, the different channels through which you're going to access your client. Different ways how you're going to reach them. I think there was a question earlier on about, you know, I can write the blog post, but how do I get it to them? Now this is going to be how we can get our message to them in the different ways. So we're going to write down those different marketing channels. They can be various and they can be diverse. And then we're going to have like a half an hour's team work where you guys are going to fill out the orange column. And that's going to be answering within your own team. What are the different marketing tactics that you guys can fill to take advantage of those different marketing channels. So, for example, if one of those channels is a media outlet, so maybe I have, I don't know, TechCrunch as my media outlet that my customers read, my potential users. Then, from tactics, I'm going to try and think about ways how I can get my message through that channel. Right now, I see two options. I see that I could write a press release and send it to a journalist there, or I could write an opinion piece and offer it to an editor. So those would be two rows. So for two tactics for that media outlet. In terms of social media, yeah, I don't know, we might have LinkedIn. So our different tactics might be sharing that kind of story, sharing this kind of story, sharing our progress, sharing a downloadable guide, whatever makes sense for your product itself. And so you're going to go through your different channels and you're going to think about what are the different tactics, the different things that you can do in that channel to get your message across. Is this clear? Do you guys feel able to do this? Okay, so if we've got, is half an hour enough time or is that too much time for you guys? I think half an hour would be enough time to go through all of those different channels. Do the Zoom people need breakout rooms to go into your teams? Are they already set up? Okay, so starting now, so it's 2:14, so half an hour, so 2:45 is when we come back, and I hope that everyone has your marketing tactics listed. In the meantime, I'll come around and chat to you guys and see if I can help brainstorm some tactics. Okay?